Generally, any rain petering out, the skies brightening, the cloud breaking up, and we'll see some decent spells of sunshine, I suspect, by the afternoon, which will lift the temperatures. A warmer day tomorrow, certainly over eastern England, with some sunshine, temperatures likely to climb back into the 20s. More heavy showers to come through Friday evening across the northwest, but otherwise, pretty pleasant Friday evening for many. Still a bit breezy for sure. The weekend starts fine. Probably quite cloudy, but some sunshine developing, and it is going to get a bit warmer through the weekend too.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Are you dreaming of a ton of tax-free cash this summer? We want to make that dream come true with a stunning £76,543 and 21 pence in cash to spend however you like. Put a new car on the drive or just relax in the knowledge that this year we've got your back. For a chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way.
You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
the Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
Because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong Tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think GB News is completely unique in the way that we interact with our viewers.
Our audience aren't afraid to have their say. They want their voices heard now, and they've got a channel where that can happen.
I find more and more as I'm wandering around, people come up to me and they say, "We saw you on television." I say, "Oh yes, on what?" "On GB News." "Hello, are you the famous Sue?"
The whole crew hit me here now. We came to celebrate.
It's our job to be the eyes and ears of the viewers.
They are part of the GB News family, and I'm pleased to say it's a very large family.
And if people go to the time and trouble of listening and watching, then we've got to do a good job for them.
Well, I'm here right in the epicentre of the protest.
Here we go again.
You just tuned in. Where have you been?
It is raucous here tonight.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 3 p.m. Welcome to Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. Broadcasting for you live until 6 p.m. Here's what's coming up on today's cracking show. Top story today, Keir Starmer's sinking premiership has been slammed with another torpedo. Today, Labour's Defence Minister John Healey has sensationally resigned. With Labour obsessed with spending billions on welfare and not warfare, is this Keir Starmer's final Waterloo moment? And a Pakistani asylum seeker has been jailed for 10 years for raping an 18-year-old woman in Nottinghamshire last June. Malik lived in Italy, Germany and France before coming to the United Kingdom and needed an interpreter in court. Here's the question. Is it time to immediately deport him back to Pakistan? As the flames died down after a second night of rioting in Belfast, today it's emerged the Sudanese stabbing suspect's asylum claim was fast-tracked. A Dublin airport is being advertised as a guaranteed way into the United Kingdom, and worse, tomorrow, Ireland joins the European Union's Migration Pact. Is it time to finally close the Irish border? Live pictures there from Mexico City because the World Cup kicks off tonight at 8 p.m. at the Estadio Azteca. A trigger alert for the hand of God. That's where Maradona robbed us back in the day in Mexico City. And so begins the usual 4-yearly delusional cycle that it's coming home. It isn't. Anyway, let's pick the players and the teams to watch to help lessen the pain of England and Scotland inevitably taking an early bath. And that's all coming up in your next hour. I'm sorry for being so cynical about England, but maybe it's just the age I am. I've tasted the pain before. And talk about tasting pain to Keir Starmer. The one thing he thought he was good at was strutting around on the world stage with his chin in the air, with Macron, with Zelensky, the coalition of the willing. Well, today, Sir Keir Starmer hasn't even got a willing defence secretary. John Healey done the honourable thing and thrown in the towel on a defence spending palette that looks absolutely sinking in the water. I'm getting full reaction to an incredible resignation that has bigger ramifications than just defence. Is this yet another sign that the Starmer ship is sinking? Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so, or scan the QR code on your screens now. But now it's time for your headlines, and here's Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you, Martin. 3:02. The headlines from the GB newsroom. John Healey has resigned as Defence Secretary, saying the government's military funding plan falls well short of what Britain needs. In a letter to the Prime Minister, he said he couldn't accept a settlement that leaves the armed forces without the resources they need. Mr Healey accused Sir Keir Starmer and the Treasury of failing to commit enough money at a time of rising threats, pointing to Iran, Russia and the escalation in Ukraine. He warned the plan could reduce military readiness, increase risk to personnel on operations and make the country less safe. Former Health Secretary Wes Streeting, who recently quit the government in protest at Sir Keir Starmer's leadership, said John was an excellent Defence Secretary. Every word of warning here needs to be heeded. The Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, says Mr Healey was right to walk away.
Yesterday, I raised the issue of the Defence Investment Plan, and the Prime Minister exposed the fact that he was not going to put money into defence to the amount that was required. And I'm sure John Healey sat there listening to the Prime Minister tell me that he was increasing defence funding when he is not. He has done the honourable thing and resigned. I am glad that he agrees with me that we need to put more money into defence. But what is shocking is what he's written in his letter, where he says that the Prime Minister is making the country less safe and putting our troops at risk at a time of increasing threats.
Well, there's been plenty of reaction across Westminster as political leaders say Mr Healey's resignation raises serious questions about whether Britain's spending enough to defend itself. Liberal Democrat leader Sir Ed Davey says it should be a wake-up call for Labour to fund properly the armed forces. The Green Party says the resignation shows Sir Keir Starmer has no serious plan for the threats facing the country. And Shadow Defence Secretary James Cartledge says John Healey showed integrity but accused the Prime Minister of prioritising welfare over defence. Water cannons will be used on the streets of Northern Ireland again tonight as police warn of a robust response after 2 nights of unrest. Authorities say extra officers and police dogs will be deployed and those behind the violence will be brought to justice. The main flashpoint was in Glengormley, just north of the city centre, where men dressed in black and wearing face coverings targeted police with projectiles. The victim, Stephen Ogilvie, was seriously injured, and his family say they're disgusted by the disorder. Hadi Al-Adid, who is originally from Sudan, has appeared in court charged with attempted murder. It's also emerged the 30-year-old was granted asylum under a fast-track scheme because of his Sudanese nationality. Our national reporter Charlie Peters is in Belfast, where extra officers have been sent after another night of violence.
Protesters were pushed back by a water cannon after they approached police lines in riot gear, threw mortar and bricks and other objects, including bins set on fire, towards police officers. One derelict property on this road has been set on fire and gutted by flames. There's also a burned out car in the road. We're hearing this morning that 12 police officers have been injured and there have been 16 arrests after last night's disorder.
Northern Ireland Secretary Hilary Benn says there was less disorder than the previous night, but condemned what he called racist thuggery after homes, cars and a bus were set alight earlier this week.
The disorder we saw last night was at a lower level than the appalling violence and scenes we witnessed on Tuesday night. And I pay tribute to the courage of the PSNI, the emergency services, fire and ambulance, because they go towards the danger in order to protect people. And I also want to thank the many good people in Northern Ireland who've provided safety, shelter and support to people who've been affected by this, including those who have been intimidated by thugs out of their homes. A Pakistani asylum seeker has been jailed for 10 years for raping an 18-year-old woman in Nottinghamshire last June. Shiraz Malik lived in Italy, Germany and France before coming to the UK, and he needed an interpreter in court. A 19-year-old police officer died in hospital after she was hit by a car while responding to another collision. Jess Turnbull, who only joined Northumbria Police in September, was called to an accident near Cramlington at around 11 p.m. on Monday. The force have described her as a dedicated and committed officer. And Donald Trump says the US will hit Iran very hard tonight as tensions continue to escalate across the Gulf. In a post on social media, the president vowed to take control of Iran's oil and gas markets and said the US would seize Karg Island. That's a major oil terminal off the coast of Iran, he said, in the not-too-distant future. It comes after Washington confirmed strikes on 2 vessels accused of transporting Iranian oil through the Gulf of Oman. In recent days, the US has hit a number of sites in southern Iran. Tehran has responded by hitting or at least targeting US military bases in the region. You're up to date for the moment. I'll be back with more at 3:30.
Taking the ups and downs in our stride. Stilts Home Lifts sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Quick look at the markets for you. The pound buys you $1.34 and €1.16. Gold costs £3,061 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 10,345 points.
GB News Finance Report, brought to you by Stilts Home Lifts.
Thank you, Aaron. Breaking news this afternoon. Sensation for Sir Keir Starmer because John Healey has resigned as the Defence Minister in a shocking blow to the Prime Minister's premiership. In a letter to the PM, the former Defence Secretary says the Prime Minister is unwilling to commit the resources that the nation needs for defence, a move which the Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch says is the right thing to do.
I am not surprised. John Healey has done the honourable thing. Yesterday, I raised the issue of the Defence Investment Plan, and the Prime Minister exposed the fact that he was not going to put money into defence to the amount that was required. And I'm sure John Healey sat there listening to the Prime Minister tell me that he was increasing defence funding when he is not. He has done the honourable thing and resigned. I am glad that he agrees with me that we need to put more money into defence. But what is shocking is what he's written in his letter, where he says that the Prime Minister is making the country less safe and putting our troops at risk at a time of increasing threats.
Well, it's another nightmare on Downing Street for Sir Keir Starmer. Let's get straight to Downing Street now and join GB News' chief political correspondent, Catherine Forster. Catherine Forster, a torpedo has slammed into Sir Keir Starmer's premiership. Terrible news today.
terrible news for the Prime Minister, but many in military circles would say this is a disaster entirely of the Prime Minister and perhaps the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves' own making. I was at a summit just yesterday afternoon with the Defence Secretary and the Foreign Secretary and their Australian counterparts. John Healey was asked very directly about defence spending, and he said that the Prime Minister knew what the country needs to keep it safe. I thought it was a strange phrase, and clearly from what he has said in his letter today, he thinks that the Prime Minister knows what's needed but just has not been able to deliver it. One of the most damning lines is when he said, "You have been unable and the Treasury has been unwilling to commit the resources that the nation needs to defend the country at this time of rising threats." So John Healey has been pushing for the government to spend 3% of GDP on defence by the end of this Parliament. We're around about 2.5% at the moment, going up to 2.6 next year. But what his letter reveals is that the Defence Investment Plan, which we were supposed to have about 9 months ago and still not been published, was only actually going to increase defence spending by 0.08% from next year, where it would be 2.6, to the end of Parliament, where it would be 2.68. Bear in mind that last summer at the NATO summit in The Hague, the Prime Minister signed up along with all NATO allies to Donald Trump's demand that we spend 5% by 2035. Yet the government have kicked this into the long grass, basically just saying, oh, no, we'll get to 3%, but perhaps not till 2034, when we have wars on two fronts. John Healey only yesterday was saying that the world was more dangerous and more uncertain. He believed fervently that the money needed to be front-loaded now, given that the Prime Minister himself has said that Russia could invade a NATO ally as soon as by 2030. So I don't think this is surprising. What it has done is laid bare these very deep divisions within government. We are still waiting for the Prime Minister to write to John Healey in response. We don't know who the next Defence Secretary will be, but the government is saying that the country is safer because of the decisions that the Prime Minister had made, and that they will continue to act in our national interest. The Treasury is also saying they will always do what was right and needed to keep the country safe.
Thank you very much indeed, Catherine Forster from Downing Street. Back to you throughout the rest of the show. Back to Westminster now for some analysis, joined by Chris Hope, our political editor, Mark White, our Homeland Security editor, and delighted to be joined by the esteemed company of the former head of the British Army, Lord Richard Dannett. Lord Dannett, if I may start with you today. We've gone from Rule Britannia to being an international laughingstock, and today, is this the final insult for Keir Starmer?
Well, I think it probably is. You say, is it the final insult? I think you look around the world, our enemies smile at our incapability, and our allies shake their heads in disbelief that we're not doing the right thing. Is it a shock that John Healey has resigned? Yes, maybe it's a shock. Is it surprising? No, it's not surprising. He knows perfectly well, after years of shadowing defence, 2 years as Secretary of State for Defence, he knows the difficulties that our armed forces are going through. He knows how weak in comparison to some of our allies are, and he knows the serious threats that are ranged against us. So he has reached the end of the road, and frankly, he didn't have any option other than to resign. And frankly, top marks for him for having the moral courage to do the honourable thing.
Well, Dana, the premium role of any Prime Minister is to keep its country and its countrymen and women safe. You have a Defence Minister saying the country is less safe, a 0.08% increase. It's a rounding error. It's pathetic.
It is certainly not the 3% that Keir Starmer signed up to in his speech at the Munich Security Conference back in January. 3% by 2029 was what he said, and they've talked about 3.5% by the end of the next Parliament. How on earth you can promise anything in the next Parliament, this side of a general election, it rather beats me. But he's absolutely on the record as saying 3% by 2029, the end of this Parliament. And frankly, these small amounts of money that are being offered now, it's unsurprising that John Healey, who knows the cost of all these things, he knows just how much the armed forces have been hollowed out by successive governments, and I think there's no getting away from that, really, since the end of the Cold War. And it's risible when this government says, we are the governments that put the most amount of money into defence. Well, of course they have. Everyone else has been cutting for the last 20, 30 years, and they've put a few pounds more in, but we're talking about relatively small amounts, not the large amounts that are required to fully make capable our armed forces. And it's not because the generals, the admirals, the air marshals want to be able to fight and win a war. We want to make sure we've got the deterrent capability to confine Vladimir Putin's further objectives in Europe as part of collective European security.
And yet, we have the smallest army now since the Napoleonic times, less than 180,000. Now, that's less than the amount of men who've arrived here illegally since 2018. When you think of it in those terms, we're vulnerable, we're hollowed out, we're on our knees.
You're absolutely right. Think of it in other terms as well. I was with John Healey on Saturday last week at the British Memorial in Normandy when we were commemorating the 82nd anniversary of D-Day. Now, if in the 1930s the government of the day then had put enough money into defence, you could actually argue that the Second World War wouldn't have broken out. There wouldn't have been a need for Operation Overlord. There wouldn't have been a need for a Normandy campaign. We wouldn't have been there on Saturday commemorating over 22,500 under British command who had died. There are lessons to be learnt in history, and I think the figures are very telling. Briefly, in 1935, we spent less than 3% of GDP on defence. We failed to either deter or appease Hitler. When the war broke out in 1939, we then were spending 19%. And in 1940, when we were fighting for our very survival, it was 46%. That's the appalling cost of not spending what you need to spend now to deter war in the future.
A sombre warning and wise words. Thank you very much for coming today. I appreciate your time in Westminster. That is Lord Richard Danners, the former head of the British Army. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
To my panel now, let's start with you, Chris Hope. Aside from the defence, this is a disaster for Keir Starmer. I mean, talk about a bunker buster moment. His premiership now is absolutely on the ropes.
I think it's hanging by a thread. I didn't think that yesterday. I felt that there was a way that the Prime Minister could fight a leadership campaign and maybe win. I thought that Andy Burnham was unravelling under pressure, most recently declaring that he would try and honour the promise of billions of pounds to the WASPy women, which is now apparently rowed back from, I'm hearing. But I just think that the point about not changing the leader now, the very reason to keep Keir Starmer in, has gone. He said, don't change it, there's a war on, I'm the person who has the connections internationally, I'm leading a coalition, they're willing, I'm keeping us safe. This letter from John Healey just torpedoes that below the waterline, Martin. It says to MPs, why keep Keir Starmer on? There's no need to. That line there from John Healey, you, the Prime Minister, have been unable and the Treasury has been unwilling to commit the resources the nation needs. If they won't spend the money to keep us safe, why keep Keir Starmer in there? I've never thought this until now, how vulnerable this PM is.
And yet, Mark White, we have a party, a Prime Minister addicted to spending money on welfare and not warfare. And isn't that the point? Politics is about choices. And Keir Starmer can strut around with his coalition of the willing, but now he looks like the emperor with no clothes on.
And this is the thing. I mean, you know, this is a direct hit, to continue to use military parlance here, of Sir Keir Starmer and his premiership. This is a man who has gone all around the world, who stood centre stage these big set-piece events and has told the world how he is leading the way in meeting the demands of a very uncertain and dangerous world by investing big time in our defence. But yet, what do we see? We see no defence investment plan. More than a year after the Defence Review was published, you've got defence companies up and down the country screaming for that plan, because without it, they have no certainty of what their order books will be. Some have already gone to the wall. Redundancies have been made in multiple defence companies as a result of this. And in terms of how we look on the world stage, we've got, remember Germany, the laughingstock. They sent helmets to Ukraine, always criticised by, chief among them, the likes of Donald Trump for not stepping up to the plate and investing in their defence. Well, what have they done since Russia invaded Ukraine properly? They've gone from 2.3% of GDP up to 4% 1% of GDP, 108 billion euros a year compared to our 62 billion pounds, roughly 32 billion pounds more than we spend in defence.
Thank you. Chris, you look a quick line for us.
Well, I'm watching now who else might jump. Al Carnes has said this elsewhere today. This defence industrial plan is not fit for purpose. He's got to sort this out. That means that we're looking at another U-turn to stop another defence minister resigning, Al Carnes. I can't see how he can stay there, having said that, in that same department. And the politics is a failure of Keir Starmer. He should have said to his Chancellor, we need the money, I'm going to demand you make the cuts. And then she resigned. He's won that battle in defence of another national interest.
OK, gentlemen, a huge breaking story. We're going to come back to this throughout the rest of the show for certain, but still to come. But also plenty more reaction to Defence Secretary John Healey's sensational resignation from Keir Starmer's government. And also, after another night of rioting in Belfast, we'll be asking whether we could yet again see more chaos on the streets in Northern Ireland again this evening. We'll go there to our man Doogie Beattie next here on GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get this on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK.
Oh, thank you. And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
The Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Time is 3:24. With me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. A second night of unrest erupted on the streets of Belfast last night, of course, after a Sudanese asylum seeker was charged with attempted murder following a knife attack on Monday evening. Police were forced to use a water cannon against demonstrators in the Northern Ireland capital after mass protesters threw bricks and bottles at police near a migrant hotel. And it comes as it's revealed the suspect travelled to Northern Ireland from Dublin before having his asylum claim fast-tracked under a controversial Home Office scheme. Let's get now to to Belfast to join GB News' national reporter, Charlie Peters. Charlie, we've seen 2 nights of unrest and the heat is turning up again. We learned today that tomorrow Ireland enters the European Union Migration Pact. That means even more people will be going into Dublin. Even more people will be looking to fast-track through that soft underbelly into Northern Ireland. And tell me, what's the mood there on the streets of Belfast?
Well, Martin, I should say straight away, I do feel as though that discussion just isn't happening here in Northern Ireland. Many people I'm speaking to are frustrated, even if they're not, of course, part of the protests or the rioting or the disorder at the most extreme level that we've seen. They're frustrated because the conversations they want to be having, the engagement from politicians that they're expecting on this issue isn't coming forward. Instead, they're hearing a lot of messaging and a lot of language about social media toxicity, about far-right agitators online from people who don't know anything about Belfast. And they say that's all well and good, but perhaps it's a distraction from what they actually want to focus on. But before we get into the disorder, I have some breaking news to bring you, just coming to us in the last few moments from the leader of the DUP, Democratic Unionist Party, that's Gavin Robinson. He said that he's had permission from the family of Stephen Ogilvie, of course the victim on Monday night's horrific attack. Now, his condition is improving and the family hopes that he will be taken out of an induced coma within the next 24 to 48 hours. So Stephen Ogilvie's condition is improving, with Mr Robinson also sharing that an assessment about Mr Ogilvie's eyesight will be made, of course, once he has been removed from that induced coma. Of course, we learnt yesterday at Belfast Magistrates Court that Stephen Ogilvie had lost his left eye in Monday night's horrific attack, and a Sudanese asylum seeker, 30-year-old, has been charged with attempted murder, possession of a blade, and also with threatening to kill an NHS radiographer when he was also being treated at a hospital in Belfast. Well, yesterday we were 13 kilometres northwest of the city in Glengormley when we were reporting on the second night of disorder as people were trying to get to the Chimney Corner asylum migrant hotel. They were pushed back onto the Antrim Road by the police service, where there was a significant standoff, a lot of action between the police forces and indeed those protesters and rioters. Mortar, bricks, wheelie bins set on fire, pushed towards them, and in one quite astonishing act, a van was set on fire and pushed towards a residential property. Well, I spoke to the man who lived in that house, and he was actually watching this scene unfold in his front room, Martin, on GB News, watching the live pictures as he saw that flaming vehicle going towards his house. He told me what it was like. His name's Paul Sharkey.
Very frightening, very, very frightening. This is a residential area. Nobody expected that to happen around here. You know, it all happened so suddenly. There were protesters pushed back from the migrant hotel. The police pushed them up this road. There was quite a lot of people here last night, and it just all kicked off.
Well, the Assistant Chief Constable Ryan Henderson, speaking earlier, said that additional forces will be deployed tonight, including mutual aid from the police forces on mainland Great Britain. He also said that there would be the water cannons available tonight as well. He said that last night some 20 plastic bullets were fired as part of the police operation. 12 police officers injured last night, many of them, though, back in the line today. The boys and girls of the police service, as he said it, were raring to get back into their duties. 16 arrests made last night, a handful of charges today, including one teenage boy. We're expecting more charging decisions to come shortly. Just finally, Martin, yesterday the atmosphere in the city centre was extremely tense. Barely anybody on the street. Today there has been an improvement. I'm here right now in East Belfast. You can see a remnant from the echoes, perhaps, of the last 2 days of the disorder. The clean-up operation is ongoing, but perhaps it feels like tonight, at least in the city centre, that sense of foreboding danger, the air of menace that was filled in the air last night and the night before, that perhaps has started to dissipate.
Charlie Peters, superb reporting as ever. Thank you, my friend. And it's fantastic news to hear that Stephen Ogilvie is improving. That really, really is a gift from the gods. Thank you very much indeed, Charlie Peters. Get to my next guest now. I'm delighted to be joined by the member of the House of Lords and the former chair of Parliament's Northern Ireland Select Committee, Baroness Kate Hoey. Baroness Hoey, it's always a pleasure to have you. I've been very, very keen to speak to you for days now. And the political situation is breathtaking. As a Brexiteer yourself, somebody who warned against the dangers of a soft border for years and years and years, the chickens have come home to roost. The soft underbelly. People just swanning into Dublin and walking over the border into Northern Ireland. Now we learn that tomorrow Ireland will be a part of the European Union's migration pact. Things could get worse.
Absolutely. This influx that we're going to see into Dublin will be coming over the border. There's no doubt about it, unless the government steps in very, very quickly. And it was interesting. There was no media coverage, but there was actually lots of protests last night in Dublin as well. So that, the issue is kind of actually uniting people from all sides. But I just would say, first of all, it really is showing that still the government are not listening. Hilary Benn is not listening. And when I think of that particular migrant hotel, the Chimney Corner, that I know very well, for weeks there have been silent, peaceful protests there, most weekends. Got no coverage at all, hardly. Right at the very beginning it did. And people feel that no one listens to peaceful protests. Now, that's not saying that I'm calling for people not to be peaceful, and the riots that we've seen and the terrible destruction and the way that now many young people's lives are going to be ruined because they're going to go to court and there'll be very severe punishments is shocking. But the government has not listened, and Hilary Benn still trotting out today the same old platitudes about people who are protesting basically are racist, people who are protesting even peacefully, almost implying that they're racist as well. And unless they listen, unless they realise that you cannot keep putting large numbers of people from foreign cultures into communities who've never been asked, are they interested? Will they be happy? Can they help them settle in or anything like that? Then this is going to get worse. And fortunately today, it's very wet and horrible. It has been raining very heavily. And tonight is not going to be the nice weather that it was last night. And I'm afraid, unfortunately, some of the young people who come out may not be so keen to come out on a wet, horrible night. Now, that isn't going to be the answer. We can't have rain all the time. But, the reality is Hilary Benn is not listening. The government is not listening. And people understand that. They hate what's gone on in terms of the violence. But I know that they're speaking out quietly and privately, saying this is not good enough.
Baroness Hoey, we've been saying for years on this channel, the political class all over the United Kingdom and in Ireland simply don't want to engage with the working class on this topic. Perhaps it's because they know that they've backed multiculturalism, they've backed open borders to the hilt. To face reality, to look in the mirror, would surely be an admission that it is they who have failed. The political class are to blame.
I think that's what the average member of the public is saying. We've not been consulted, we weren't listened to, and you are now reaping the harvest of that. I just hope that it's a wake-up call. It is just outrageous that the Irish government has been stopping buses regularly, getting on the train regularly, asking people for their identity once the train and the bus goes over into their country, which, let's remember, it's a foreign country. Yes, we have a free travel area that has been historically there, but it's meant to be for citizens. It's not meant to be for illegal people coming into the country. And yet we have refused to do that. The questions I asked Lord Hanson, the minister, last year, he just fumbled into answers about, we're talking, we're being very constructive with the Irish government. Nothing has happened. And so we're going to see more and more of these kind of illegal people coming into Northern Ireland. And then quickly, we seem to want to give them a refugee status for at least 5 years, and they get all the benefits. So it's just such an obvious common sense approach now that has to happen, and the government must listen.
Baroness Hoey, can I quickly ask you one quick final question, and it's this. We see this huge disconnect between the political class and the working class. We see claims that they're far right, they're racist, and we're seeing coppers being shipped in from the mainland on overtime. The stormtroopers clamping down on people in Ireland. Now, that's going to go down, I would imagine, in these communities very, very badly. When you go back to the days of the Troubles, the mood in the air, the febrile atmosphere, how close do you think we're getting to that kind of mindset in Belfast right now, Kate Hoey?
Well, I mean, the one thing that has made me feel quite, slightly reassured is that we haven't hasn't gone into sort of real sectarianism. Yes, perhaps there has been more unrest in areas that would be seen as loyalist areas. A lot of that's because, of course, Sinn Féin and the Alliance Party support open borders and have never spoken out against any of this. And therefore, their members and their supporters in those areas would be going against their own party if they come out and demonstrate. But quietly, it's been very interesting listening to some of the radio phone-ins this morning, just how many people are speaking from the nationalist community and have also got concerns. So I'm not so worried about it turning into a sectarian situation. We're very much like the rest of the United Kingdom, people sitting back being absolutely fed up that they're not listened to, and we are part of the United Kingdom, and we're behaving now like some of the protests that you saw in the rest of the United Kingdom.
OK, Baroness Kate Hoey, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us today on GB News. Now, still to come next, a Pakistani asylum seeker has been jailed for 10 years for raping an 18-year-old woman in Nottinghamshire last year. Here's the question. Why on earth are we not deporting that scumbag today? But first, though, here's your latest news headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Thanks, Martin. Good afternoon to you. 36 minutes past 3 hour headlines. John Healey's resigned as Defence Secretary, saying the government's military funding plan falls well short of what Britain needs. He says the Prime Minister and Treasury have failed to commit enough money to defence at a time of rising threats. Police have vowed a robust response to riots in Northern Ireland with extra officers' dogs and water cannons deployed. 12 police officers have been injured and 16 people arrested after a second night of unrest following Monday's knife attack in Belfast. A 19-year-old police officer died in hospital after she was hit by a car while responding to another collision. Jess Turnbull, who only joined Northumbria Police in September, has been described as a dedicated and committed officer. Nearly 3,000 patients a day had to be cared for in hospital corridors or makeshift treatment areas rather than in a bed on a ward in England, according to the latest figures released. And Donald Trump says the US will be hitting Iran very hard tonight and taking total control of the country's oil and gas markets. The US and Iran have launched fresh strikes across the Middle East for a second day, raising fears the fragile ceasefire is once again under threat. And you're up to date with the headlines. More coming up at 4.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Good afternoon. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Overall tomorrow, a lot drier and a bit warmer than today. It may start fairly dull, but it should get a bit brighter, and it won't be completely dry. Still a few showers around, but not the persistent rain that many of us had through this morning from this set of weather fronts, all trying to move out into the North Sea, but leaving behind a lot of cloud, rain and drizzle, particularly over hills and around the coasts in the west. Some of that rain just pushing its way up towards Orkney, but most of it clearing from eastern parts of England and Scotland. So becoming much drier here through the night with some clearer skies. It will be quite a warm night, particularly in the south. Temperatures holding up in the mid-teens and still quite breezy here as well. On to Friday, a bit of a mishmash, certainly to start with. A lot of cloud, still some rain and drizzle across Wales, northwest England, Northern Ireland. It's probably a largely dry but fairly drab start across southern counties. Still quite breezy here. Northeast England into eastern Scotland. I think the favoured spots for starting off, at least with some sunshine. A few showers continuing to come into northwestern parts of Scotland. As we go through the day, we should see skies brightening in many locations. Quite a wet morning for northwest England, perhaps, and there will still be rain and drizzle over the hills of Wales, certainly through the morning. Showers will keep going into western Scotland, blown along by a fairly brisk wind, but elsewhere, generally any rain petering out, the skies brightening, the cloud breaking up, and we'll see some decent spells of sunshine, I suspect, by the afternoon, which will lift the temperatures. A warmer day tomorrow, certainly over eastern England, with some sunshine, temperatures likely to climb back into the 20s. More heavy showers to come through Friday evening across the northwest, but otherwise, pretty pleasant Friday evening for many. Still a bit breezy for sure. The weekend starts fine. Probably quite cloudy, but some sunshine developing, and it is going to get a bit warmer through the weekend too.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News every week.
You're not only watching and listening to our programmes, you're becoming part of them too.
This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Expect M62 westbound disruptions in Leeds between junctions 29 and 28 due to roadworks, 3 lanes closed. In Cheshire East, the M56 exit at junction 7 is blocked by emergency works. The M1 northbound in Leicestershire between junctions 23A and 25 has lane closures for maintenance. The M42 northbound in Solihull is obstructed between junctions 5 and 6 due to emergency work. Roadside drain tasks on the M11 northbound in Essex between junctions 7 and 8 close 2 lanes. The M20 westbound in Kent at junction 1 is disrupted with 1 lane closed. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. Time is 3:41. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. I'm joined in the studio, of course, all day today by GB News' Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Mark, I was speaking with Baroness Kate Hoey there, and I just don't anybody is not aware about what's happening tomorrow. This European Union Migration Pact is baked in. Every member state, as of tomorrow, including Ireland, via that soft underbelly that we've just seen this asylum seeker get into Northern Ireland, will be signing up to this migration pact and having to take compulsory mandated amounts of asylum seekers.
Yeah, which means basically the more illegal immigrants that come and penetrate the EU's external borders, then the more, anywhere at all, then the more countries like Ireland will have to take their share of that. That could have been us if we were still in the EU. But I've got news for you. That will be us, because it doesn't matter whether we are in the EU or not now, because there is no border between the Irish Republic and Northern Ireland. So anybody coming into the Irish Republic can just decide whenever they fancy to come into the UK proper.
A lot of people for a long time were talking about the dangers of this soft border to the Republic of Ireland, and this case, this Sudanese national Mulwhite, it's brought everything crashing into reality all at the same time. We're learning today that this individual was fast-tracked in a Rishi Sunak scheme to get people to clear that backlogs, the streamlined asylum process. It meant 92,000 backlog was wiped out. Well, they weren't wiped out, they weren't sent home, they were made indefinite leave to remain, the right to stay here. We've only sent 1 back to Ireland out of all that came in, but now the backdoor route being advertised by Albanians on TikTok, get into Dublin, you're guaranteed to get into Britain, but now it's baked in, there'll be even more asylum seekers going into Ireland, and as you're exactly right, an open door into Britain.
And all that will do in both the Republic of Ireland, where they are thoroughly fed up with the number of legal and illegal migrants, because mass migration as well, that they suffer from like we suffer from, and in the north of Ireland, it's just going to add even more to the tensions that people are seeing and feeling in their day-to-day lives. And I think listening to Hilary Benn doing the government round this morning, he's completely out of touch with actually the feelings of so many people around the country. And he's talking again in platitudes about, you know, we're better than this and we need to come together as a country, and, you know, these people contribute so much to our economy. Yes, well, many of them do, but also trying to suggest that, you know, the Sudanese suspect, well, many of the nurses in your hospital will be Sudanese. Well, I just put it to him that actually, you know, those that we see and I've seen many of them over the years that come in small boats across the English Channel, are not the doctors and nurses and scientists and engineers that some in the chattering classes like to tell us they are. They are people often that contribute net zero, in fact, a negative cost to our country. And in addition to that, many of them, and it's not just some, many of them get caught up in criminality, either, you know, accidentally through circumstances or deliberately. And that is the worry. You don't know who these people are, and some of them go on to commit the most horrible of crimes.
And it was fascinating there speaking with Kate Towie saying there was a protest in Dublin last night. Now, the entry points. Don't forget, we've been covering for a couple of years on the channel those asylum centres being set up, military-style camps in the countryside, outside of Dublin, outside of Cork. So they have their problem there too. And both sides of the border now, Mark White, are saying we need a harder border. They're both fed up.
Yeah, well, we heard, of course, from the Sinn Féin First Minister talking in her press conference, giving short shrift to our Dougie Beattie. They want a united Ireland. Well, you know, they are getting a united Ireland in the sense that so many people south of the border and north of the border are united in their opposition to mass migration and illegal migration that is causing so much harm in communities on both sides of that border.
Mark White, beautifully put. The country is being united against the political class. Quite astonishing. Superb, mate. We'll have more of you throughout the rest of the show. Now, meanwhile, if you're in search of some holiday sun, then here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. High pressures building in for much of Europe to bring plenty of sunshine. It's especially warm through the Canary Islands through the rest of this week. Temperatures climbing towards the high 20s across Tenerife. Also quite warm in Portugal as well as Italy. The temperatures climbing to the low 30s here. There's a risk of thunderstorms across Greece, particularly in the afternoons, and that risk does continue into the weekend. But otherwise, it looks pretty warm and pretty sunny if you're heading away. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
I'm a bit worried about the future of the biscuit because it seems that people aren't really drinking tea in this country anymore. And I think you really need a cup of tea with a biscuit, but we're all coffee drinkers these days.
Yeah, I mean, this might be a bit controversial, but I like a cup of coffee with a biscuit. But so I think it's fine. I think it's just, you know, things can kind of develop and change, and that's okay. But I think what doesn't change is that biscuits are such a sort of important part of the kind of bedrock of our culture. I mean, we eat more biscuits as a nation than any other nation by some margin. So, you know, and I think they're about sharing and connection as well. You know, that people taking a bit of time out, you know, for tea and biscuits or coffee and biscuits. You know, that's part of what it's all about.
GB News, the People's Channel. Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Clearly, it's a terrible loss of revenue for Mr. Bezos there, but you know, I guess it's part and parcel of the move forward to try to determine what possible anomalies there are.
Yeah, it's a parcel of the game, unfortunately, in rocketry and spaceflight in general. It was actually going to launch 48 satellites for Amazon next week, which obviously isn't going to happen. More serious than that, though, however, is the damage that's been caused to the launch site.
So what? We can't do anything when we get to any of these planets anyway. We're just out there going, hey, and then we come back.
No. We could do an awful lot of work. There's a lot of research work to be done on the surface of the moon by scientists who can look at the evolution and development of the solar system, the evolution of the Earth, how the Earth actually formed initially.
GB News, the People's Channel. GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
And I've been an oncologist consultant for over 45 years, so I've seen it all. When we started 45 years ago, everybody got chemotherapy after getting a diagnosis of breast cancer if there was to reduce the risk of it coming back. And then what we've seen over the years, and this is really the culmination of years of effort, tests that predict what's going to happen. They analyze the molecular composition of the cancer, very sophisticated analysis based on DNA and genes to predict what's going to happen. So only the women that are at the highest risk actually need to have the chemotherapy. And everyone is really delighted with this British trial in London's University College Hospital. What the trial showed is that once you actually get the diagnosis from this sophisticated test, you don't need to have chemotherapies.
GB News.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 4 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, a quick reminder, breaking story this hour. John Healey has resigned as the Defence Minister in a shocking blow to the Prime Minister's premiership. In a letter to the PM, the former Defence Secretary says the Prime Minister is unwilling to commit the resources that the nation needs for defence. I'm joined in the studio by Chris Hope and Mark White. Chris Hope, let's get to you. This, surely now, is the beginning of the end of Sir Keir Starmer's premiership. It's curtains.
I've been wrong before, but it feels like it, Martin. I think that the reason he was be able to tell his MPs don't replace me is because there's a war on. It's a dangerous world. I've got my links in with all the world leaders. I'm the guy keeping it safe. But here you've got the Defence Secretary saying, no, you're not. Telling the Prime Minister in terms you've been unable and the Treasury has been unwilling to commit the resources that the nation needs. For me, this goes back to the original sin of this government, was not to try and push up income tax, VAT or national insurance to cover the cost of the £500 billion we spent on COVID and dealing with the energy shock from Ukraine. Instead, they were relying on growth that never happened. And here we are nearly 2 years later. There's no money left. They can't find how to spend more money to keep us safe. It's a failing of this government. Of course, we're yet to see the Prime Minister's reply to what John Healey said to him. But John Healey's letter is an absolute exocet missile to the heart of this government. We're now watching very closely what happened to Al Khan's. He, of course, is a well-decorated, hugely admirable former serviceman, now in the MOD. Will he stick around for this clearly a defence investment plan that doesn't actually meet the mark?
Mark White, if you're Keir Starmer now and you're down in your bunker and the political tanks are circling, you know it's over. There's no way out of this. If you can't defend your nation, that's the central number one task of any Prime Minister, and your Defence Minister says that's correct, it's over.
I hate to conjure up the image of someone rather famous from back in the time who was in the bunker who didn't want to surrender. But I honestly think, he will be dragged from Downing Street kicking and screaming. There's so many people would have thought, no, this has got to be the point where Sir Keir Starmer says enough is enough. And he's not. He is determined to fight on. But as Chris was saying, this is a really difficult one. I think... OK, John Healey, he had a bit of a stumble when he couldn't remember how many frigates we had when he was being interviewed by Nick Ferrari on LBC. But apart from that, this is a well-respected, principled individual who I think has been very shrewd in the way that he has said on this resignation letter that the money that you're making available is not enough. He details what that is. Are the government going to call him a liar? I don't think you can. So how do you deal? You can't character assassinate such a well-respected figure, can you?
And Mark and Martin, what I don't understand is a politician would have said, right, I'm going to push the boat hard with Reeves and make her make the choice of whether to stay or to go. And then he's saying, I was trying to keep the country safe. If Rachel Reeves has gone, that's OK. And that's a way almost of breaking apart that partnership, which has been so difficult, frankly, in government. It hasn't worked, has it? Let's be honest about it.
But in terms of spending, we say it all the time, this government seems addicted to welfare, not warfare. And that's the point. It's a question of priorities, and the priorities of this government have been completely and utterly off target.
And that choice was made very clear by George Robertson, a former NATO Secretary-General, former Defence Secretary, in his report. We are now spending more on welfare than the defence budget.
Massively more, yeah. And the thing is, well, you might think that the unions are going to be there. They'll support the government, especially spending on other departments, not cutting it. But Unite, they're saying that this absolutely shows that this is a national disgrace and that defence industry companies are really suffering because of this.
OK, gentlemen, as Sir Keir Starmer is left defenceless without a defence minister, could this be his Waterloo moment? Plenty more on this after the break. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News, Britain's #1 news channel, plus plenty more Chris Hope, plenty more Mark White. Don't go anywhere.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good afternoon. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Overall tomorrow, a lot drier and a bit warmer than today. It may start fairly dull, but it should get a bit brighter, and it won't be completely dry. Still a few showers around, but not the persistent rain that many of us had through this morning from the set of weather fronts, all trying to move out into the North Sea, but leaving behind a lot of cloud, rain and drizzle, particularly over hills and around the coasts in the west. Some of that rain just pushing its way up towards Orkney, but most of it clearing from eastern parts of England and Scotland. So becoming much drier here through the night with some clearer skies. It will be quite a warm night, particularly in the south, temperatures holding up in the mid-teens and still quite breezy here as well. On to Friday, bit of a mishmash, certainly to start with. A lot of cloud, still some rain and drizzle across Wales, northwest England, Northern Ireland. It's probably a largely dry but fairly drab start across southern counties. Still quite breezy here. Northeast England into eastern Scotland. I think the favoured spots for starting off, at least with some sunshine. A few showers continuing to come into northwestern parts of Scotland. As we go through the day, we should see skies brightening in many locations. Quite a wet morning for northwest England, perhaps, and there will still be rain and drizzle over the hills of Wales, certainly through the morning. Showers will keep going into western Scotland, blown along by a fairly brisk wind, but elsewhere, generally any rain petering out, the skies brightening, the cloud breaking up, and we'll see some decent spells of sunshine, I suspect, by the afternoon, which will lift the temperatures. A warmer day tomorrow, certainly over eastern England, with some sunshine. Temperatures likely to climb back into the 20s. More heavy showers to come through Friday evening across the northwest, but otherwise pretty pleasant Friday evening for many. Still a bit breezy for sure. The weekend starts fine. Probably quite cloudy, but some sunshine developing, and it is going to get a bit warmer through the weekend too.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for making GB News Radio such a huge success. Whether you're in the car, on the go, or listening at home, thank you for choosing us as your radio station.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Traffic is slow westbound on the M4 between junction 24 and 26. A restriction is on the A1 northbound at Bankton due to a broken down vehicle. Northamptonshire's M1 southbound has one lane closed between junction 19 and 18 because of a collision. Hertfordshire has delays on the M1 southbound between junction 8 and 6 with two lanes closed after an accident. West Sussex drivers on the A27 westbound face a 10-minute delay. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast is disrupted between Carlisle, Motherwell and Edinburgh. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
£76,543 and 21 pence in tax-free cash could be yours this summer. That's totally tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. And remember, because it's totally tax-free cash, you'll get to keep every single penny. For a chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter? So that's a very live question. Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way.
You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 4 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting for you all the way through until 6 p.m. An absolutely cracking show awaits. Here's our top story today. Keir Starmer's sinking premiership has been slammed with yet another torpedo, this time as today Labour's Defence Minister John Healey has sensationally resigned. With Labour obsessed with spending billions of pounds on welfare and not warfare, is this Keir Starmer's final Waterloo moment? And a Pakistani asylum seeker has been jailed for 10 years for raping an 18-year-old woman in Nottinghamshire last June. Mr. Malik lived in Italy, Germany and France before coming to the United Kingdom and needed an interpreter in court. Here's the question. Is it time to immediately deport this rapist back to Pakistan? And as the flames died down after a second night of rioting in Belfast, today it's emerged the Sudanese stabbing suspect's asylum claim was fast-tracked. Dublin Airport is being advertised as a guaranteed way into the United Kingdom, and worse, tomorrow Ireland joins the European Union's migration pact, which means it has to take asylum seekers from all across the continent. Here's the question. Is it time now to close the Irish border? And as the World Cup kicks off tonight at 8 p.m. in their Stadio Azteca, that's right, the place where Maradona robbed us of the World Cup in Mexico City, so begins the usual 4-yearly delusion that it's coming home. Well, it's not. But we'll pick the players and the teams to watch to help lessen the pain of England and Scotland inevitably coming home for an early bath. And that's all coming up in your next hour. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. Well, football might not be coming home, but the chickens are coming home to roost for the Prime Minister. Another minister resigns today, this time John Healey, a principled man, well-respected, well-liked, just says the Prime Minister is not keeping the country safe. Surely, the sole responsibility of a Premier is to keep his people safe, but we can't even defend our own borders. We've got our smallest army since the Napoleonic times. There are more people have come here on dinghies, 200,000, than we have in our army, 180,000. We've got the smallest RAF since records began, and most of our ships are conking out across the Mediterranean. We've become a laughingstock. Rule Britannia is on its knees, and so is Sir Keir Starmer. Is this the final chapter of Sir Keir Starmer's embattled premiership? Stick with us. We've got more reactions throughout the rest of the show, but get involved in that show. gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so, or scan the QR code on your screens now. Now it's time for your headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Thanks, Martin. Good afternoon. 2 minutes past 4. Our headlines. John Healey has resigned as Defence Secretary, saying the government's military funding plan falls well short of what Britain needs. He wrote to Sir Keir Starmer, saying he could not accept a settlement that leaves the armed forces without the resources they need, accusing the Prime Minister of failing to commit enough money at a time of rising threats. Mr Healy warned the plan could reduce military readiness, increase risk on personnel on operations and make the country less safe. The former Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, who recently quit the government in protest at Sir Keir's leadership, said every word of warning here needs to be heeded. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch says John Healy was right to walk away.
Yesterday, I raised the issue of the Defence Investment Plan, and the Prime Minister exposed the fact that he was not going to put money into defence to the amount that was required. And I'm sure John Healy sat there listening to the Prime Minister tell me that he was increasing defence funding when he is not. He has done the honourable thing and resigned. I am glad that he agrees with me that we need to put more money into defence, but what is shocking is what he's written in his letter, where he says that the Prime Minister is making the country less safe and putting our troops at risk at a time of increasing threats.
Well, there's been plenty of reaction across Westminster. Many political leaders say Mr Healy's resignation raises serious questions about whether Britain's spending enough to defend itself. Sir Ed Davey, the Liberal Democrat leader, says it should be a wake-up call for Labour to properly fund the armed forces. The Green Party says the resignation shows Sir Keir Starmer has no serious plan for threats facing the country. And Shadow Defence Secretary James Cartledge says John Healy showed integrity but accused the Prime Minister of prioritising welfare over defence. Donald Trump says the US will be hitting Iran very hard tonight and taking total control of the country's oil and gas markets. It comes after fresh exchanges of fire between the sides over the last 2 nights. The US president also vowed to take control of Iran's oil and gas markets. He said America would seize Cargill and a major oil terminal off the coast of Iran in the not-too-distant future. Water cannons will be on the streets of Northern Ireland again tonight as police warn of a robust response after 2 nights of unrest. The Police Service of Northern Ireland says extra officers and dogs will be deployed and those behind the violence will be brought to justice. 12 officers were injured and 16 people arrested during a second night of rioting prompted by Monday's knife attack in Belfast. The victim, Stephen Ogilvie, was seriously injured. His family say they're disgusted by the disorder. Sudanese asylum seeker Hadi Al-Odid has been charged with attempted murder. Our national reporter Charlie Peters sent this report from Belfast.
Protesters were pushed back by a water cannon after they approached police lines in riot gear, threw mortar and bricks and other objects, including bins set on fire, towards police officers. One derelict property on this road has been set on fire and gutted by flames. There's also a burned out car in the road. We're hearing this morning that 12 police officers have been injured and there have been 16 arrests after last night's disorder.
The Northern Ireland Secretary Hilary Benn says there was less disorder last night than the previous night, but condemned what he called racist thuggery after homes, cars and a bus were set alight.
The disorder we saw last night was at a lower level than the appalling violence and scenes we witnessed on Tuesday night. And I pay tribute to the courage of the PSNI, the emergency services, fire and ambulance, because they go towards the danger in order to protect people. And I also want to thank the many good people in Northern Ireland who provided safety, shelter and support to people who've been affected by this, including those who have been intimidated by thugs out of their homes.
A Pakistani asylum seeker has been jailed for 10 years for raping an 18-year-old woman in Nottinghamshire last June. A jury heard she was first sexually assaulted by another member of the group before being led to Malik in a secluded area and raped for a second time. Malik lived in Italy, Germany and France before coming to the UK and needed an interpreter in court. And a 19-year-old police officer died in hospital after she was hit by a car while responding to another collision. Jess Turnbull, who only joined Northumbria Police in September, was called to an accident near Cramlington at around 11 p.m. on Monday. The force have described her as a dedicated and committed officer. And you're up to date with the headlines. More coming up at 4:30.
Taking the ups and downs in our stride. Stilts Home Lifts sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Quick look at the markets. The pound buys you $1.33 at the moment and €1.16. Gold costs £3,057 per ounce. The FTSE 100 is at 10,341 points.
GB News Finance Report, brought to you by Stilts Home Lifts.
Thank you, Aaron. Breaking news this afternoon. More terrible news for the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, because John Healey has resigned as Defence Minister in a shocking blow to the Prime Minister's embattled premiership. In a letter to the PM, the former Defence Secretary says the Prime Minister is unwilling to commit the resources that the nation needs for defence, a move which the Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch says is the right thing to do.
I am not surprised. John Healey has done the honourable thing. Yesterday, I raised the issue of the Defence Investment Plan, and the Prime Minister exposed the fact that he was not going to put money into defence to the amount that was required. And I'm sure John Healey sat there listening to the Prime Minister tell me that he was increasing defence funding when he is not. He has done the honourable thing and resigned. I am glad that he agrees with me that we need to put more money into defence. But what is shocking is what he's written in his letter, where he says that the Prime Minister is making the country less safe and putting our troops at risk at a time of increasing threats.
Yes, another nightmare on Downing Street for the Prime Minister. Let's get straight to Downing Street now and join GB News' chief political correspondent, Catherine Forster. Catherine Forster, the Prime Minister's premiership was already under heavy fire. Now a huge torpedo slams into the hull.
Yes, exactly, and it feels irrecoverable to me now at this point, perhaps too for the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, because of that excoriating resignation letter that the Defence Secretary, John Healey, said. A couple of the most damning lines when he said, "You have been unable and the Treasury has been unwilling to commit the resources that the nation needs to defend the country at this time of rising threats." He goes on to say that with the level of funding that they were offered, he would be forced to make decisions that would reduce the readiness of our forces and could make the country less safe. Make the country less safe. It doesn't really get more serious than that, does it? The allegation being levelled at the Prime Minister and the Chancellor. Now, I've been here all afternoon. Johnny Reynolds, the Chief Whip, went in. I think Lucy Powell has been in through the back door, but other than that, nothing. We've had a fairly sort of run-of-the-mill statement from a government source saying that absolutely the Prime Minister will do whatever it takes to keep us safe. Similar from the Chancellor, so though some of the Chancellor's teams have been briefing out in rather punchier language and saying that, let's be clear, what John Healey is asking for is cuts to schools and hospitals. And this is the difficulty of it, how to fund this defence investment plan. There's been an almighty row going on for a long time now between the Treasury, Number 10, the Ministry of Defence, but the bottom line was that John Healey was insisting that we needed to get to 3% defence spending by the end of this Parliament, and what the Chancellor and Number 10 have offered would only take us to 2.68, which would be a rise of just 0.08% between where we will be next year and the end of the Parliament. And this is just absolutely unconscionable to the Defence Secretary. I was at a summit with him late yesterday afternoon along with the Foreign Secretary and his Australian counterparts. He was asked very directly about defence spending and he looked exceedingly uncomfortable, and I'm not at all surprised that this has happened, to be honest, because for all the Prime Minister's rhetoric about going further and faster, and indeed warnings even in the last few days that there could be an attack by Russia on a NATO ally as soon as 2030, John Healey was saying you've got to front load this spending. We need this spending now. The world is so dangerous. But the reality of what they were proposing was to kick the bulk of that big increase in defence spending way into the long grass into the next Parliament. So you could have had a situation that they wouldn't get to 3% till 2034, bearing in mind that we have promised Donald Trump, as have all NATO allies, to be spending 3.5% by 2035, along with another 1.5 defence adjacent. You can only wonder what Donald Trump is going to make of this when he gets wind of what is going on. We are expecting him at the G7 summit in Evian in France, along with the Prime Minister next week. It could be very awkward indeed.
in Evian. Oh my God, it's a nightmare for Sir Keir Starmer. Thank you very much, Catherine Forster there from Downing Street. Back to the studio for analysis. Delighted to be joined by GB News' Home and Security Editor Mark White and GB News' Political Editor Chris Hope. Chris, straight into you. The future of Keir Starmer is something we talk about on this channel all the time. This is a new low. Sir Keir Starmer's Waterloo moment, perhaps.
Waterloo. I think a depth charge has been chucked onto the submarine here, Martin, of Keir Starmer. He's been held below the waterline, a torpedo into the heart of his ship. It's unbelievable, I think, what's happening here. A real concern, I think, for John Healey. The way he's been talked about, with Keir Starmer, he has always made clear he is the individual to keep the show on the road. That's why he was kept there. We were told repeatedly they couldn't drop him, risk the country's future, risk the defence. In fact, by John Healey's own letter here, you've been unable and the Treasury unwilling to commit the resources to keep us safe. That's the problem.
And the point is, we continually talk about the spending priorities of this government. 0.08% increase. It's a rounding error. It's pathetic. And we're spending billions on welfare, Mark White, and that's the point. We have our priorities all wrong. We have a defence minister saying the Prime Minister can't keep his citizens safe. It's the end game.
Yeah, I mean, on that welfare point, £333 billion is the welfare budget. Compare that to the defence budget, £62 billion. And I couldn't help but notice in your intro you were talking about the army being 180,000. Actually, they wish they had 180,000. The size of Britain's entire armed forces, the Army, the Navy and the Royal Air Force and associated personnel is 180,000 or thereabouts. The British Army standing force, the moment, is 72,000.
Wow.
Couldn't even fill Wembley Stadium. With the reservists, take you up to about 90,000, might just fill Wembley Stadium. But that is of deep concern, of course, to people within the army, but not just that, the parlous state of the Navy, that's well rehearsed. We saw the debacle over trying to get the one destroyer we had available down to Cyprus to help guard that. It is in a shocking state, and you've got a Defence Secretary who's highly regarded and respected, who has said in terms, this is what you're offering for this settlement for the Defence Investment Plan. It is less than half of what is actually required just to fill this structural black hole. Now, is the government going to come around and try and undermine a well-respected individual like John Healey? I can't think they
as
can.
we sit here, we haven't got a Defence Secretary, right?
Yeah.
And that is interesting to me because he resigned 4 hours ago. Now, normally these roles are filled quite quickly. Is there a battle going behind the scenes? Will Al Khan's not take it? Obviously, it could be Dan Jarvis. Will he take it, given the way it's been attacked here? Is there a battle going on between MPs won't take that job unless the PM backs down? Will the PM then back down? Another U-turn, further weakness. Yeah. And this question of authority that PM has over his own cabinet, his own ministers, that's now in question.
Mark White, also another number we mentioned is the number of people come here illegally on small boats. Since 2018, over 200,000. I just think people get quite concerned when they hear things like our entire combined military might is less than the amount of men who've come here illegally since 2018 alone.
20,000 less than those that have broken to the country across the English Channel. That doesn't even go to address the many, many times that number who've come in illegally in other routes, but that's just across the English Channel. And if you, put that up against a standing army of 72,000, that could fit 3 times effectively into the number who have broken in to the UK across the Channel in small boats.
Chris, back to the point of Sir Keir Starmer, he was at his happiest at another coalition of the willing meeting, whatever you want to call them. I've always called them the coalition of the pointless, and I think now it's been proven to pass. If you have a defence minister who doesn't believe in a Prime Minister's defence mission, well, you have nothing.
The problem is he repeatedly tells us how important defence is to him as the leader of this country, and yet he's not backing that up with the money required to keep us safe. By no means, according to John Healey. If it's only 10 billion, as the Times reports, that's barely a third, or just over a third, of what the defence chiefs wanted. Maybe 28 billion was the figure previously talked about. So we're nowhere near. So it almost exposes, he's hoisted by his own petard. He's exposed, I think, by a landmine I think, at the heart of what he's been trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, he's committed to 3% of GDP by 2029, but as John Healey was saying there, no indication that he's ever going to get there. Compare it to Germany, as we were talking about a little earlier. They've doubled their budget effectively from 2.3% of GDP up to 4%. 108 billion euros is their defence budget. It's about 30-odd billion plus more pounds than the UK is spending. And just to finish on this point, the NATO summit in July, just a few weeks' time in Turkey. I'm hoping to go there because I'll be in Turkey at that time. You may be there yourself. That is going to be so interesting because Keir Starmer's going to be on the world stage again with his defence minister having resigned with him being brutally exposed over the way in which defence has been underfunded in this country. And who have you got there? Donald John Trump, who feels very, very slighted by Sir Keir Starmer anyway in the response to the Iran war. That could be fun and games.
It certainly will, gentlemen. We have to leave it there. It was once Rule Britannia, now it's charge of the Lightweight Brigade. Thank you very much indeed, Mark White, Chris Hope. Now, still to come, we'll have plenty more reaction to Defence Secretary John Healey's sensational resignation from Sir Keir Starmer's government. Is the Prime Minister now defenceless? And also, after another night of rioting in Belfast, we'll be asking whether we could yet again see more chaos on the streets in Northern Ireland again this evening. That's next here on GB News with Britain's #1 news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
Day in, day out. Forget stuffy late night TV shows. We're giving you a front row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Welcome back. Got some breaking news for you now, and it's this. Darren Medhurst, 36, has been jailed for 3 years and 3 months at Southampton Crown Court, along with Callum Darch, 27, and Harley Haynes, aged 23, who were both in prison for 2 years and 6 months for their parts in violence at a protest over the murder of the student Henry Novak. So there we go. 3 more have been jailed after the protests in the aftermath of the tragic, brutal murder of Henry Novak. Moving on, a second night of unrest erupted on the streets of Belfast last night after a Sudanese asylum seeker was charged with attempted murder following a knife attack on Monday evening. Police were forced to use a water cannon against demonstrators in the Northern Ireland capital after mass protesters threw bricks and bottles at police near a migrant hotel. Well, let's now get to Belfast and join GBNews' national reporter Charlie Peters, who joins us there. Charlie Peters, we generally see things starting to get a bit more tense this time of day. What's the mood on the ground in Belfast now?
Well, Martin, there are certainly more people on the ground here today than there were yesterday around this time, but just been speaking to some businesses on the Newtonards Road where we are now in East Belfast. Many people saying that they will be closing early again tonight because they're just not sure of what might come later. There have been 3 nights now where warnings have been issued by the police and they've not been heeded, and disorder has swiftly followed. We're here on Lendrick Street now, where 2 nights ago some of the most severe disorder took place. I've just turned behind me. There was a van here cleaning up rubbish a few moments ago. That's, for some reason or another, been replaced by a Lamborghini, which is just parked amid this crisis at the moment. Just goes to show what a strange city Belfast is at the moment. Some of the bizarre sights we're seeing. A burnt-out vehicle and another one sandwiching in a Lamborghini, which is just driven here and parked. All very curious indeed. But, Martin, the strange sense of chaos and the uncertainty and the feeling in the air that there could be some more menace to come, that's all arriving after we heard from the Assistant Chief Constable Ryan Henderson, who described how last night in the disorder some 12 officers were injured, 16 arrests were made, that they used that water cannon. It's ready again to go tonight. They fired 20 plastic bullets last night as well in Glengormley, about 13 kilometres northwest of Belfast. And we also heard from Mr Henderson talking about what he was blaming for what is behind this disorder.
We have seen a significant coordination from online social media activity, some from people within Northern Ireland and some from...
Well, that's what Ryan Henderson had to say about the situation in Northern Ireland, talking about the toxicity of social media and those platforms. A lot of people here actually expressing to GB News a lot of frustration about how there's been so much focus on social media, on posts online, and actually not enough time dedicated to talking about some of the causes of the anger, particularly from people who aren't taking to the streets, who aren't protesting or rioting, but are fuming about the situation that has occurred in Northern Ireland and the causes behind that barbaric attack on Monday night, where, of course, an asylum seeker has been charged, and we have to leave it there in terms of that conversation. Just want to bring in this man here called Glenn, a local resident, lives on the street. Glenn, thanks very much for speaking to us. Yeah. What's the mood been like here in the last couple of nights since the appalling events of Tuesday evening?
Tense, really tense. So it has been everyone's very down to all our neighbours. We've all... The housing sector have asked us, will we want to be relocated? No.
Yeah.
Because it's nothing to do with us, what's happened.
Yeah. And Glenn, you know, just moments ago we saw a young family, 2 school children, being walked home. They live here as well. You can only imagine what it was like for them that night. This has been petrifying for families.
Yeah. It was scary for myself. So it was. I'm a grown man. I was scared. And I was in my own house. But yeah, there's kids in the street were terrified. There's the kid, I can't say what number, but he's an adult, but he has mental health problems, and he hasn't moved out of his room since Tuesday night.
At the same time, there is, of course, still quite a lot of anger about what happened here on Monday night, and people want to be able to feel as though their voices are being heard. Yeah. Do you think that's happening in Northern Ireland right now?
I think they've went about it the wrong way. We take pride in our street. As you can see, we decorate our street. It's our history. We put all the banting all up in the flags and stuff and all, and they've just come and destroyed their own area. That house is over as a family with a 7-year-old wee boy in it. And the mother came home 7 o'clock in the morning, didn't know her house was burnt out. How is that she meant to feel about that?
Glenn, thank you for speaking to us today. I appreciate your time. And it just goes to show, Martin, some of the tension still felt in this area. The police service, local politicians and indeed residents will be hoping that there is more calm. But on top of that, Martin, there is an additional hope that actually they're listened to, that there is an engagement with the concerns people are expressing here that have been expressed for quite some time. A lot of people we've spoken to last night in Glengormley at the scene of that disorder, in East Belfast the last few days, they are telling us why has it taken this tragedy on Monday night for this conversation to fill out into the public, and why even then are people still failing to engage with it properly, particularly those in positions of responsibility. And just finally, was also struck last night and this morning in that area, on the Antrim Road, Newton Abbey area, just outside of Belfast in County Antrim. The number of people we spoke to who said that they were catching live scenes of their own buildings and vehicles being destroyed because they were watching it on GB News. We were there, we were live there, and the communities that have been destroyed by that incident, the property, but also the relationships that have been affected by that, the sense of trust, that will take some time to heal. The police, they very much hope that healing can start as soon as possible.
Troy Peters, thank you very much, and well done for shaking that man's hand and getting in there and giving these communities a voice. You know, that's our job. Doing a fantastic job, Troy Peters. Thank you very much there, joining us live from Belfast. I've got some breaking news on this story for you now, and it's this. The Telegraph is reporting that the Sudanese man charged with attempted murder worked as a policeman in Khartoum, in Sudan. Friends of his have told the Telegraph. Hadi Al-Odid is from a prominent North Sudanese family and was allowed into the UK, was followed to the UK by 2 brothers who also live in the United Kingdom. The 30-year-old appeared in court on Wednesday, charged with the attempted murder of 44-year-old Stephen Ogilvie. Of course, we heard in the previous hour, we understand Mr. Ogilvie's condition is improving. So at last, some good news there. He lost an eye, though, in that attack. But this is a significant piece of news. A former policeman from a prominent family, who it also reports here in the Telegraph, was educated in Saudi Arabia before going back to Sudan and then on into Europe and then on into Dublin and then United Kingdom. So a former policeman. The plot thickens. That's a breaking news line. Now let's move on, because all of this comes as it's revealed. The suspect travelled to Northern Ireland from Dublin before having his asylum claim fast-tracked under a controversial Home Office scheme. And let's now speak with our next guest. That's the Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control, Rob Bates. Rob, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. You know, it's been almost impossible to quantify this new menace, this new threat of the soft underbelly into Dublin and up into the United Kingdom to Belfast to claim asylum. We know it's been fast-tracked. We know that practically everybody from Sudan is granted asylum. Is there any way of quantifying this? And I also want to get your take on the fact that tomorrow, Ireland joins the European Union Migration Pact, which means they will have to take quotas of asylum seekers from all across the European Union. This is going to get worse, Rob Bates.
Yeah, so on the fast track thing, that was basically when the Conservative government gave up even attempting to control the small boats crisis and just started waving through applications. It's not quite at the same rate now under Labour, but it is still nonetheless a system of chaos. When it comes to the common travel area, which is, of course, how this individual was able to get into Northern Ireland, I think we need to be perfectly clear in the fact that so long as the common travel area operates as it is doing, Britain will have its immigration policy to some extent tethered to what is fast becoming a basket case of the Irish government's decisions. The Irish government has sort of eschewed its own opt-outs from European asylum policy and decided to go full into an EU pact that will undoubtedly lead to thousands more individuals being relocated to Ireland, whether that is from illegal migrants that have broken into Eastern Europe being relocated, or whether that is through the creation of legal pathways directly with Middle Eastern and African countries. The picture is perfectly clear that Ireland will continue to see very, very high numbers arriving in the coming years. And so long as we have this continual open border, we will, of course, see situations such as we saw with the Sudanese chap, where he's able to travel up unimpeded and claim asylum. But I also think the bigger problem here is when it comes to asylum seekers in the Republic of Ireland, they are able to come up, no restrictions whatsoever, and then there is a very real risk that they do just simply disappear into Northern Ireland, get involved in organised crime, engaged in criminality, the black economy, and so forth. And so long as we continue with the status quo of an open border and no real pressure on illegal migrant population, no hostile environment, so-called, then I do think, unfortunately, that we will continue to see an exploding population of illegal migrants in Northern Ireland, and that will inevitably, sadly, lead to sort of criminality bubbling over and flowing over, as we saw a couple of days ago.
Rob, if I may interject, also when you look at which nations were involved in this streamlined asylum process introduced by Rishi Sunak's government in February 2023, right when this individual, this suspect, came to our country, the countries that were fast-tracked: Syria, Eritrea, Yemen, Libya, Afghanistan. Rob Bates, your own research tells us time and time again these are countries that feature prominently on those countries most likely to engage in serious criminality.
Absolutely, and of course it's not just us now, it's the government's own chief immigration advisor that has said those nationalities overrepresented in asylum are more likely to commit crime. It was the BBC even yesterday had to admit that asylum seekers are more likely to commit crime. We had the terror watchdog come out and say that he thinks that illegal migration is a national security crisis. We have flashing red lights all over the place, and yet the government doesn't really seem to be treating this with the severity that it does deserve. I think it's undoubtedly a good thing that they are increasing funding for illegal immigration crackdowns and so forth. But I think there's a lot more that needs to be done. And I do think, in particular, when it comes to the common travel area and Northern Ireland's exposure to the whims of the Irish government's policy, immigration policy, we need to start looking at what we can do to create this hostile environment of right to work checks sort of a lot tighter, right to rent checks, sort of access to healthcare and so forth, what the police can do to really track down those that don't have permission to be in the country. Because it is, as I say, this EU pact that comes into place tomorrow will have a very, very significant impact on the population of Ireland, and therefore that will bleed into social, economic problems for the Northern Ireland as well.
OK, Rob Bates, you're exactly right. How many wake-up calls do we need to hear? Rob Bates, superb as ever. Thank you very much for coming on the show today. I appreciate your expertise. Now, still to come, we'll have plenty more reaction to the bombshell news. The Defence Secretary John Healey has sensationally resigned from Sir Keir Starmer's government from a former British Army officer and a Conservative MP. That's next. First, though, here's your headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Thanks, Martin. Good afternoon to you. Our headlines. John Healey has resigned as Defence Secretary, saying the government's military funding plan falls well short of what Britain needs. In a letter to Sir Keir Starmer, he said the Prime Minister and Treasury had failed to commit enough money to defence at a time of rising threats. Police have vowed a robust response to riots in Northern Ireland, with extra officers, dogs and water cannons deployed. 12 police officers have been injured and 16 people arrested after a second night of unrest following Monday's knife attack in Belfast. A 19-year-old police officer died in hospital after she was hit by a car while responding to another collision. Jess Turnbull, who only joined Northumbria Police in September, has been described as a dedicated and committed officer. Nearly 3,000 patients a day had to be cared for in hospital corridors or makeshift areas rather than on a ward in England last month. That's according to new figures. The NHS says being transparent about the problem could help trusts tackle it. And Donald Trump says the US will be hitting Iran very hard tonight and taking total control of the country's oil and gas markets. The US and Iran traded fresh strikes across the Middle East for a second day overnight, raising fears the ceasefire is in further doubt. And we'll have more coming up for you at 5 o'clock.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Good afternoon. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Overall tomorrow, a lot drier and a bit warmer than today. It may start fairly dull, but it should get a bit brighter, and it won't be completely dry. Still a few showers around, but not the persistent rain that many of us had through this morning from the set of weather fronts, all trying to move out into the North Sea, but leaving behind a lot of cloud, rain and drizzle, particularly over hills and around the coasts in the west. Some of that rain just pushing its way up towards Orkney, but most of it clearing from eastern parts of England and Scotland. So Becoming much drier here through the night with some clearer skies. It will be quite a warm night, particularly in the south. Temperatures holding up in the mid-teens and still quite breezy here as well. On to Friday, bit of a mishmash, certainly to start with. A lot of clouds, still some rain and drizzle across Wales, northwest England, Northern Ireland. It's probably a largely dry but fairly drab start across southern counties. Still quite breezy here. Northeast England into eastern Scotland. I think the favoured spots for starting off, at least with some sunshine. A few showers continuing to come into northwestern parts of Scotland. As we go through the day, we should see skies brightening in many locations. Quite a wet morning for northwest England, perhaps, and there will still be rain and drizzle over the hills of Wales, certainly through the morning. Showers will keep going into western Scotland, blown along by a fairly brisk wind, but elsewhere, generally any rain petering out, the skies brightening, the cloud breaking up, and we'll see some decent spells of sunshine, I suspect, by the afternoon, which will lift the temperatures. A warmer day tomorrow, certainly over eastern England, with some sunshine. Temperatures likely to climb back into the 20s. More heavy showers to come through Friday evening across the northwest, but otherwise pretty pleasant Friday evening for many. Still a bit breezy for sure. The weekend starts fine, probably quite cloudy, but some sunshine developing, and it is going to get a bit warmer through the weekend too.
Thank you, Britain, for all of you who listen to GB News Radio.
Whether you're at home or on the go, you're making us Britain's news channel and Britain's radio station.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. Emergency roadworks cause restrictions on the A83 at Loughnell Street near Loch Gilphead. Heavy congestion continues on the M4 westbound between junctions 24 and 26. In West Berkshire, a broken-down vehicle on the M4 between junctions 11 and 12 closes one lane, expected to clear shortly after 4:30. On the M25 anti-clockwise in Surrey, 2 lanes are closed due to a broken-down vehicle, with normal conditions anticipated soon after 4:45. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast services face disruption between Carlisle and Motherwell or Edinburgh. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. It's 20 to 5. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. A reminder of the huge news this afternoon, the bombshell news. John Healey has resigned as the Defence Minister in a shocking blow to the Prime Minister's embattled premiership. In a letter to the PM, the former Defence Secretary says the Prime Minister is, quote, unwilling to commit the resources that the nation needs for defence and is failing to keep Britain safe. Astonishing words, and joining us to discuss this as a former British Army officer and the former Conservative MP, Colonel Bob Stewart. Colonel Stewart, it's a pleasure to have your company as ever. May I get your initial reaction to this incendiary news?
I'm horrified, to be honest. For 2 years, I've said nothing about defence. I've not even involved myself in politics. What's actually happening in defence now is so appalling. I've actually liberated my X account and actually tweeted for the first time in my life. And I've actually just written a book, both feet in it, about defence. But what's actually happening now is that the Prime Minister promised he would sort out defence. He would give defence the resources it needs. Instead of doing that, he's actually committed resources to things like welfare and also, absurdly, net zero. The first duty of our Prime Minister is the defence of the realm. And it's not happening, and it's about time the Prime Minister realised where his first responsibility lay.
But I wonder if he does, because we often see Keir Starmer on the international stage, the coalition of the willing. He seems at his happiest when he's acting like he's in control of defence, not only in Britain, but across the entire continent of Europe. And yet when push comes to shove, a 0.08% increase on defence is a rounding error. It's pathetic.
It's appalling. Look, I've got a skin in this fight too. Two of my children are serving at the moment, and I've got a son-in-law who's also serving. This matters greatly to me, and it matters to the people of this country. Defence is, I repeat, the first duty of our Prime Minister, and he's not doing it. He's actually allowing resources to go elsewhere, and that is absolutely wrong. He's not getting it right.
It's fair to say, of course, that successive governments have underinvested, including the Conservatives, but, you know, that is by the by now. But here's the point.
Well, I'll answer that too. I agree with you. The Conservatives didn't. All the time I was a backbencher, I was arguing for more money for defence. But of course, I was a backbencher, not part of the government. However, the Conservatives should have put more money into defence. I agree.
We are where we are today, and we find ourselves in a sobering position, Colonel Stewart, where the entire combined armed forces of our land, Army, RAF, Navy, reservists, is less than the amount of men who've come here legally on dinghies since 2018. This is an appalling situation that's left us vulnerable and frightened and alone.
We are vulnerable. I hope we're not too frightened, but people are extremely concerned about what's happening in defence. And I am, as I say, I've actually got my big bottom off my chair and started to talk about defence again when I thought my time was up. I thought my time was over 2 years ago at the last election, and I thought politics was over for me. But it isn't, because defence of this country is in my blood and in my family's blood, and we want to get it right, and therefore I have to say something.
So what needs to be done, Colonel Stewart? Do you think Keir Starmer's finished?
Well, I don't know about that, but I'll tell you one thing. It was Lord Robertson, a man I deeply respect, and, you know, also Richard Barrons, who did this defence review and recommended that money, extra money, and they specified how much should go to defence. The Prime Minister then said he would oblige, and this would happen. And now, clearly, with John Healey's resignation, an honourable and a decent man, who I've always respected, he's resigned. And why has he resigned? Because actually, clearly, the money that was promised isn't forthcoming. Instead, it's been channeled to other things that the Labour government believe are a higher priority than defence. Get real.
I think you're exactly right. We seem to have this addiction to spending on welfare when we should be spending on warfare. That's it. Thanks for my company today. That's the former British Army officer and former Conservative MP who's very much back in the game, Colonel Bob Stewart. Thank you for your time, sir. And as ever, I say to everyone who's served, thank you for your service. Now, plenty more still to come. But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun this year, here is a forecast for some of your top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. High pressures building in for much of Europe to bring plenty of sunshine. It's especially warm through the Canary Islands through the rest of this week. Temperatures climbing towards the high 20s across Tenerife. Also quite warm in Portugal as well as Italy. The temperatures climb into the low 30s here. There's a risk of thunderstorms across Greece, particularly in the afternoons, and that risk does continue into the weekend. But otherwise, it looks pretty warm and pretty sunny if you're heading away. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Veterinary surgeons and such as yourself, I mean, you're very, very highly trained, but it just feels so expensive when there's something wrong with your animal. And it does also seem that insurance doesn't cover the very things you need.
There's been huge advancements in veterinary medicine. 20 to 30 years ago, we had no CT scanners in practice. We had no MRI machines. Our blood tests were very rudimentary. And for that, you could do that very cheaply. Now we can offer you this incredibly high level of care that comes at a high cost. Everybody wants this extremely high level of care for their pet. Of course, you want the best for your pet. But there's nobody else to pay for that. So if you can be honest and say, I can't do that at that amount of money, we'll find you a way. Yeah. We will.
GB News, the People's Channel. GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Lovely to see them all looking rather laid back and informal, wasn't it?
Yes, you know, we're used to all of these grand royal events, and although this was undoubtedly the society wedding of the year, a very low-key event, they deliberately wanted to keep it as a private affair, as much as one can when one is a member of the royal family, of course. But it was a private ceremony, it was very intimate, and that's really the way that they've lived, that Peter Phillips has lived his life recently, and I think he wants to continue that. Interesting to note also that in this modern age, this is a blended family at this marriage, because they're both entering this as their second marriage. Of course, Peter Phillips previously married to Autumn Kelly, with whom he has two daughters, Savannah and Isla, who are 15 and 14. They were bridesmaids.
GB News, the People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Dorothea, how does it feel being here today, joining other veterans?
It's marvellous, because for years after the war ended, nobody knew that women had even done anything during the war. And also, they suddenly discovered that, good heavens, women have got brains. They can think for themselves and for the country. And it was naturally assumed that everybody would willingly do their bit for England. And they would have. We had one purpose in life, which was to free the world from Nazism.
The People's Channel.
Welcome back. It's almost 10 to 5 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, a reminder of the breaking news story this afternoon. John Healey has sensationally resigned. Bombshell news as the Defence Secretary, and a shocking blow to the Prime Minister. I'm joined in the studio in Westminster by Chris Hope and Mark White. Chris, the political gloves are coming off. John Healey was saying that he wanted more money and there was no money forthcoming. He said he wanted to make cuts. Here's a government pathologically resistant to making any form of cuts, and now it seems it's all kicking off.
It really is. So this is a Treasury official talking to Politico, the website. They say this, that Rachel Reeves will always do what is right and needed to keep the country safe. Don't forget, think back to that letter John Healey sent. He said to the PM, you would be unable and the Treasury unwilling to commit the resources that the nation needs. So that is attacked by HMT officials.
We haven't got magic money, tree. Where's the dosh coming from?
Well, it goes on. They note that she's been working with Keir Starmer to make cuts across the government to fund the DIP. And then it goes on, let's be clear on what John is asking for. Cuts to schools and hospitals. Now, some would say, unless the country is kept safe, we haven't got any schools and hospitals. That's the most important thing. So where do you draw your line? What's the important thing? You surely draw the line at keeping the country safe, and everything follows from that.
And was he really asking for cuts to hospitals and schools? I suspect he was probably asking for cuts to the welfare budget that is currently 5 times the budget of defence, Chris.
And doesn't that sum up this entire situation? Now, the defence of the realm is playing second fiddle to those who people think are on the fiddle. People on benefits. People sat on their backsides. They never feel the cuts. Defence is feeling the cuts. We're in a position where we can't defend our own shores from a daily invasion of dinghies, and they won't make any blooming cuts.
Now, to counter that, David Lammy, the Deputy Prime Minister, he said this to the Daily Mirror in the past few minutes. I'm very, very confident that we will meet our commitments over the coming weeks on defence, but also that people will look back on this period of renewal in our country and pay tribute to the work that's gone on in terms of broad terms of foreign policy and defence. So David Lammy is digging deep into this, but this battle between schools, hospitals, or the armed forces is a bit of a false choice, because you're ignoring, as Mark's saying eloquently, the benefits bill, which is, of course, raised by George Robertson, the former head of NATO.
And the other fascinating point this afternoon, Chris, is where's the new Defence Secretary?
Well,
this has been hours now since John Healey resigned. It's such a crucial position. You want to show strength as a government. Get someone in the job. Are they fighting over
in terms
Al-Qarns?
of the government, in the terms of the government, the big 5 jobs, one of those big 5 jobs is defence, the others being home, Treasury, of course, Prime Minister and others. So one of the big jobs is defence. They can't find the Defence Secretary. Is that because the person come in and says, I'll only join this top level of your cabinet if you reverse this and spend more money on defence? Al Khan surely can't stay unless that DIP is added to.
But to use a military metaphor, who wants to be the general of a tin pot army? If there's no money, if there's no armed forces to grow and support, why take the brief?
Indeed, and indeed, why take the brief in a government that looks like it's tottering on its last legs? It could well be that shortly we might see Andy Burnham come back into government. He says he wants to become Prime Minister. Wes Streeting will fight that, and Keir Starmer's name will go onto the final ballot. We are at the beginning almost of we're about to go to the top, I think, in a huge battle for the future of this country.
And increasingly, who's going to show loyalty to Keir Starmer now? Who wants to be in the trenches with him, knowing that his time is rapidly drawing to a conclusion?
And will their weapons fire?
As the bunker is surrounded by the foes, and another bunker buster goes in. We've got the Blanco
bunker
bunker
buster. The white flag's not up yet, but...
Give it time. The afternoon is young, gentlemen. Plenty more military metaphors to come throughout the rest of the day. Of that, you can be sure. Full and fulsome reaction to that Defence Secretary's bombshell nuclear resignation. And yet more bad news for the embattled Prime Minister. Used to be the Rule Britannia, now is at the charge of the Lightweight Brigade. Look, we're on our own. We're isolated. So Keir Starmer might think he's a general on the world stage, but really, well, we're an international laughingstock. That's next here on GB News, Britain's the One News channel.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good afternoon. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Overall tomorrow, a lot drier and a bit warmer than today. It may start fairly dull, but it should get a bit brighter, and it won't be completely dry. Still a few showers around, but not the persistent rain that many of us had through this morning from this set of weather fronts, all trying to move out into the North Sea, but leaving behind a lot of cloud, rain and drizzle, particularly over the hills and around the coasts in the west. Some of that rain just pushing its way up towards Orkney, but most of it clearing from eastern parts of England and Scotland. So becoming much drier here through the night with some clearer skies. It will be quite a warm night, particularly in the south. Temperatures holding up in the mid-teens and still quite breezy here as well. On to Friday, bit of a mishmash. Certainly to start with, a lot of clouds, still some rain and drizzle across Wales, northwest England, Northern Ireland. It's probably a largely dry but fairly drab start across southern counties. Still quite breezy here. Northeast England into eastern Scotland. I think the favoured spots for starting off, at least with some sunshine. A few showers continuing to come into northwestern parts of Scotland. As we go through the day, we should see skies brightening in many locations. Quite a wet morning for northwest England, perhaps, and there will still be rain and drizzle over the hills of Wales, certainly through the morning. Showers will keep going into western Scotland, blown along by a fairly brisk wind. But elsewhere, generally any rain petering out, the skies brightening, the cloud breaking up, and we'll see some decent spells of sunshine, I suspect, by the afternoon, which will lift the temperatures. A warmer day tomorrow, certainly over eastern England, with some sunshine. Temperatures likely to climb back into the 20s. More heavy showers to come through Friday evening across the northwest, but otherwise pretty pleasant Friday evening for many. Still a bit breezy for sure. The weekend starts fine. Probably quite cloudy, but some sunshine developing, and it is going to get a bit warmer through the weekend too.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News each and every week.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. A serious accident on the A466 near Welshpool has led to road closures in both directions. The A66 in Cumbria remains closed westbound due to a collision, reopening expected late evening. On the M62 westbound in Kirklees, drivers face 10-minute delays from congestion. In Surrey, 2 lanes are shut on the M25's anti-clockwise route because of a broken-down vehicle. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast and London North Western Railway services face major disruptions between Nuneaton, Rugby, Carlisle and Motherwell. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Are you dreaming of a ton of tax-free cash this summer? We want to make that dream come true with a stunning £76,543 and 21 pence in cash to spend however you like. Put a new car on the drive or just relax in the knowledge that this year we've got your back. For a chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
Day in, day out. Forget stuffy late-night TV shows. We're giving you a front-row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 5 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting for you live through until 6 p.m. A cracking show awaits. Here's our top story this afternoon. Keir Starmer's sinking premiership has been slammed with yet another torpedo this afternoon, as today Labour's Defence Secretary John Healey has sensationally resigned. With Labour obsessed with spending billions on welfare and not warfare, is this Keir Starmer's final Waterloo moment? And a Pakistani asylum seeker has been jailed for 10 years for raping an 18-year-old woman in Nottinghamshire last June. Malik lived in Italy, Germany and France before coming to the United Kingdom and needed an interpreter in court. Here's the question: should we deport this monster back to Pakistan today? And as the flames died down after a second night of rioting in Belfast, today it's emerged the Sudanese stabbing suspect's asylum claim was fast-tracked. Dublin Airport is being advertised by people smugglers as a guaranteed way into the United Kingdom. And worse, tomorrow, Ireland joins the European Union's migration pact. That means guaranteed quotas, even more, coming into Ireland. Here's the question: does that mean it's time to close the border to Ireland? And as the World Cup kicks off tonight at the Estadio Azteca, that's right, the place where Maradona robbed us with his hand of God in Mexico City, so begins the usual 4-yearly delusional cycle that it's coming home. It's not, but we'll pick all the players and teams to watch to help lessen the pain of England and Scotland undeniably, inevitably coming home for an early bath. And that's all coming up in your next hour. Got some breaking news for you at the top of the 5 o'clock, and it's this. Epping Forest District Council has said that all residents staying at the Bell Hotel in Essex, which has been used by the Home Office to house asylum seekers and was the location, of course, of protests last year after an Ethiopian migrant staying at the hotel sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl, have been removed from the property. Just to break that news, repeat that breaking news, all residents at the Bell Hotel in Essex, we've just learned Epping Forest District Council have told us all residents have been removed from the area. Remember, one of the most infamous residents there, an Ethiopian migrant who sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl. He had to be paid thousands of pounds to be deported back to Ethiopia. They've all been removed from the property. No doubt we'll learn throughout the rest of the show they're being moved potentially into HMOs, into other accommodation across the county. But for now, we can confirm the Bell Hotel has been emptied of asylum seekers. That's the breaking news, top of this hour. We'll delve more into that throughout the rest of the show. Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so, or scan the QR code on your screens now. But now it's time for your headlines, and here's Aaron Armstrong.
Thanks, Martin. 3 minutes past 5. Good evening to you. Our headlines. John Healey has resigned as Defence Secretary, saying the government's military funding plan falls well short of what Britain needs. He accused the Prime Minister of failing to commit enough money at a time of rising threats, saying he couldn't accept a settlement that leaves the armed forces without the resources they need. He warned that the government plan, could reduce military readiness, increase risk to personnel and operations, and make the country less safe. Former Health Secretary Wes Streeting, who recently quit the government in protest at Sir Keir Starmer's leadership, described John as an excellent Defence Secretary, saying every word of warning here needs to be heeded. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch says John Healey was right to walk away.
Yesterday, I raised the issue of the Defence Investment Plan, and the Prime Minister exposed the fact that he was not going to put money into defence to the amount that was required. And I'm sure John Healey sat there listening to the Prime Minister tell me that he was increasing defence funding when he is not. He has done the honourable thing and resigned. I am glad that he agrees with me that we need to put more money into defence, but what is shocking is what he's written in his letter, where he says that the Prime Minister is making the country less safe and putting our troops at risk at a time of increasing threats.
Political leaders across Westminster have been reacting. They say Mr Healey's resignation raises serious questions about whether Britain's spending enough to defend itself. Liberal Democrat leader Sir Ed Davey said it should be a wake-up call for Labour to fund the armed forces properly. The Green Party says the resignation shows Sir Keir Starmer has no serious plan for the threats facing the country. And James Cartledge, Shadow Defence Secretary, says Mr Healey showed integrity but accused the Prime Minister of prioritising welfare over defence. Water cannons will be on the street of Northern Ireland again tonight. The police have warned of a robust response after 2 nights of unrest. Authorities say extra officers and police dogs will be deployed, and those behind the violence will be brought to justice. 12 officers have been injured and 16 people arrested after 2 nights of rioting prompted by Monday's knife attack in Belfast. The victim, Stephen Ogilvie, was seriously injured. His family say they're disgusted by the disorder. Hadi Al-Adid, a Sudanese asylum seeker, has been charged with attempted murder. Our national reporter Charlie Peters sent this report.
Protesters were pushed back by a water cannon after they approached police lines in riot gear, threw mortar and bricks and other objects, including bins set on fire, towards police officers. One derelict property on this road has been set on fire and gutted by flames. There's also a burned out car in the road. We're hearing this morning that 12 police officers have been injured and there have been 16 arrests after last night's disorder.
3 more men have been jailed for their involvement in violent protests in Southampton following the murder of student Henry Novak. Darren Medhurst has been given the longest sentence of 3 years and 3 months. Callum Darch and Harley Haynes each received 2.5-year jail terms. The judge described the violence as hate crime born out of a hatred of the police and, in some cases, racist views. 10 men have now been imprisoned in total. A 19-year-old police officer died in hospital after she was hit by a car responding to another collision. Jess Turnbull, who'd only joined Northumbria Police in September, was called to a collision near Cramlington at around 11 p.m. on Monday. The force have described her as a dedicated and committed officer. Donald Trump says the US will be hitting Iran very hard tonight and taking control of the country's oil and gas markets in the near future. It comes after exchanges of fire between the sides over 2 consecutive nights. 3 Indian sailors were killed by a US strike on a ship which American forces said was attempting to transport oil from Iran. Mr. Trump says the US will be taking Karg Island at some point in the not-too-distant future. It is a major oil terminal off the coast of Iran, and it has raised the prospect of a ground invasion, although the US president told American broadcasters he's not sure that the US people would accept it. Finally, the World Cup kicks off later when one of the co-hosts, Mexico, take on South Africa. And more than 80,000 fans are expected to attend the game at the famous Azteca Stadium. It hosted Diego Maradona's Hand of God in 1986 and also the goal of the century. England are among the favourites this summer. They begin their campaign against Croatia next Wednesday. Mexico fans here getting ready for that opening match. England have beaten New Zealand and Costa Rica, so they're going well with their friendlies. Scotland fans also hoping for their major moment. The team playing in the first World Cup for 28 years. They play Haiti on Sunday. You're up to date with the latest GB News. That's it for the moment.
Taking the ups and downs in our stride. Stilts Home Lifts sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Last look at the finance for you. A pound buys you $1.35 and a euro 15. Gold will cost £3,554 per ounce. The FTSE 100 at 10,596 points.
GB News Finance Report, brought to you by Stilts Home Lifts.
Thank you, Aaron. Bombshell news today for the Prime Minister. John Healey has resigned as the Defence Secretary in a shocking blow to the PM's embattled premiership. In a letter to the Prime Minister, the former now Defence Secretary says the Prime Minister is, quote, unwilling to commit the resources that the nation needs for defence. And that's a move we see Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch says is the right thing to do.
I am not surprised. John Healey has done the honourable thing. Yesterday, I raised the issue of the Defence Investment Plan, and the Prime Minister exposed the fact that he was not going to put money into defence to the amount that was required. And I'm sure John Healey sat there listening to the Prime Minister tell me that he was increasing defence funding when he is not. He has done the honourable thing and resigned. I am glad that he agrees with me that we need to put more money into defence. But what is shocking is what he's written in his letter, where he says that the Prime Minister is making the country less safe and putting our troops at risk at a time of increasing threats.
Well, another bunker buster goes into the Prime Minister's den. For full reaction, I'm joined in Westminster in our bunker by the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice, by Chris Hope, our political editor, and a Homeland Security editor, Mark White. Richard Tice, may I come to you first? Bombshell news for the Prime Minister.
Yeah, absolutely extraordinary. For John Healey to say that the Prime Minister was unable, in other words, he's a puppet to his backbenchers, and the Treasury, i.e. the Chancellor, is unwilling to commit the resources to keep the British people safe, it is devastating. Hard to see actually how the Prime Minister can recover from this. Who is going to take this appointment with any credibility whatsoever? They've spent months and months saying they'd come up with a defence investment plan, they'd get to 3% by 2030. That was the target. And now we're here, actually, they're not going to get anywhere near it. They're billions and billions away because they want to pay more in benefits, more in net stupid zero, and less in keeping the British people safe. It's outrageous.
When you look at the money involved, a 0.08% increase, it's a rounding error. Defence budget, I think Mark White's £62 billion, the net zero budget, £77 billion. Welfare, when you take off pensions, is 150. It's 187 billion, which is ostensibly 3 times the defence budget. We have a government addicted to welfare and not warfare.
Yeah, absolutely. And the best way to guarantee peace is to have a very strong deterrent. And the reality is, this is a government that has talked the talk, but has done nothing actually to walk the walk with action and money for procurement, and it's good for British industry, it's good for our defence industry, it's good for growth, and it's good to protect British citizens. And basically, John Healey's had enough. Literally days before they were due to produce the Defence Investment Plan.
Richard Tice, you say this government isn't walking the walk on defence. You haven't even got a defence spokesman.
We are the only party.
You haven't got one. So how can you possibly accuse Labour?
Because
you are walking the walk. Who's your defence spokesman? Who is he?
Nigel.
Nigel, he's the future Prime Minister.
Chris, literally, we're the only party at the general election that said we've got to get to 2.5% in 3 years, 3% in 6 years.
You don't take it seriously. You don't walk the walk either.
Chris, we took it more seriously than anybody, and we've taken it ever seriously ever since. We've constantly said that. We show how you pay for it. You don't need net stupid zero. You don't need to pay billions on the printed money from the Bank of England to rich city institutions. You don't need to pay foreign nationals welfare. There are tens and tens and tens and tens of billions of pounds to be saved to easily fund what's required to keep Britons safe.
You haven't got a defence spokesman. That says everything about your seriousness as a party. If they let me finish,
what matters is the money. What matters,
if you think you're a serious party of defence,
is the money.
Who is your spokesman?
What matters is the money.
Can you name him?
We've provided the money. We've shown how you do it. That's what matters.
Can you name?
That's why we're leading in the polls.
Can you name your defence spokesman?
That's why we're leading in the polls.
It's not an MP, is it? It's someone else. Who is your defence spokesman?
Look, listen, Nigel and I, we have foreign and defence, and we know how we get the money. You scrap net zero. You provide at least an extra 10 to 20 billion as required in order to keep British citizens safe.
You haven't
and here's the direction of travel. We're going to have to get to 3.5% by 2035. And what you've seen is a Prime Minister who is now holed above and below the waterline. I called for him to resign yesterday in the House of Commons. Given what's happened today, he's finished. It's game over.
But your party isn't serious without having a defence spokesman.
Chris,
you can't come to GB News. It insults our
I'll tell you what's insulting.
For you to say
I'll tell you what is insulting is for you to say that we're not serious when we've just won 1,400 councillors. We've just won control of 14 councils.
One of them defence secretary.
That is what is serious, right? And we show how we get the money, and people understand that. That's why they're voting for us, Chris.
Well, before you two trade physical blows, and it's turned into open warfare here at GB News, let's get back to the potential replacements. Keir Starmer prided himself on globe-trotting. He was almost at home in international summits, the coalition of the willing, with Macron, with his old chum, Volodymyr Zelensky. That's all now in tatters.
Well, I mean, he's in a sense, all his credibility is gone when he's been saying to people we've got to spend more on defence, and basically he's this is the point. The word unable means he's not in control. Who is in control? Is it the backbenchers? Is it Wes Streeting? Is it Andy Burnham? Who knows?
Mark White, when you look at the precarious state of our defence systems now, I mean, we are a laughingstock. We were saying in the last hour, our entire combined armed forces now is significantly fewer than the number of men who've invaded our country since 2018 on small boats.
Yeah, I mean, it's deeply, deeply concerning. You know, it would be almost comical if it wasn't so very serious. The fact that, I mean, you said before 180,000 people in the army. I wish they had numbers like that. 72,000 standing army with, you know, up to and including the reserves. They might just be able to fill Wembley Stadium. But the whole of the armed forces is still more than 20,000 short of those who have broken in to the country over the English Channel on small boats. And clearly, John Healey today, this has been a devastating letter. It's always the quiet men, isn't it? Remember Geoffrey Howe in his resignation in the Commons from Thatcher's government. Now, this is a letter, but still a devastating letter when he is on the figures, naming the figures, calling out the Prime Minister, saying, who do you think you are kidding, Mr. Starmer? You know, to use, again, a good old military slogan from the past.
And the government is saying today, David Lammy is saying, the deputy to the Keir Starmer, that they will meet their commitments on the spending. They will get there before the NATO summit in July this year, next month. But whether they get there, and what strikes me is, for Keir Starmer, this holds him below the waterline. Where on earth do we go to from here? He's a PM who says, don't change me, there's a war on.
Is this a leadership bid from John Healey? That's the big question. And is Al Khan's about to resign as his sort of right-hand man?
All eyes on Labour's bunker. Thank you, Richard Tice, for coming down to see us in the GB News bunker. And thank you to you, gentlemen. Loads of war metaphors. I'm sure there are yet more to come. Let's now speak with my next guest, the former Labour councillor, Simon Greaves. Simon, welcome to the show. It's tin hat time for the Prime Minister.
Well, is it ever it's always a tin hat time for the Prime Minister, has been for months. John Healey's a man of utmost integrity. I've no doubt he took this decision very, very carefully and very seriously and felt that there was no other option for him. I'm sorry to see John go. He's been an utmost advocate for the armed forces and clearly is very serious about what needs to happen. I am probably very unpopular with some people in the Labour Party in that I think that there are some dramatic changes that need to be made, certainly in relation to budgets, certainly in relation to priorities. We cannot go on like this. The country needs the money for our armed forces. We need smart technology, but we also need large, clever chunks of metal for the job that needs to be done in protecting our troops. This cannot go on. This is incredibly serious.
It's not about smart chunks of money. It's about smart budgeting. It's about the ability to balance the sheets. And quite simply, we don't have that. Already the Treasury is pushing back, saying, oh, if John Healey got what he wanted, we'd have to cut money to schools and to hospitals. No, we wouldn't. Cut benefits. Cut net zero. There are tens of billions that can be saved, but the problem is this government is pathologically addicted to welfare and not warfare.
I don't really accept that. But if we look at Germany, they re-looked at their fiscal rules. If you look at other countries, they are looking at taxation, they're looking at budgets, they're looking at difficult decisions.
Here we go.
They're taking those difficult decisions. And so there does need to be changes.
A total
to
manifesto U-turn, raising income tax because the Labour Party can't make any cuts. It'd be a total and utter betrayal of the manifesto to hike taxes because you can't do any cuts.
I'm not saying that there shouldn't be cuts. And the reason why I say I'd be unpopular is I would certainly want to see those cuts in order to put a better priority for our armed forces and what needs to be done to secure this country. And I strongly believe that that's where John Healey is as well. And that's the reason why he's walked. There's a lot of questions for the Treasury, especially the ham-fisted way in which they've made some very, tried to brief against John Healey, a man of utmost integrity, about the conversations that may have taken place in the background. Certainly defence has to be a priority at this time.
OK, thank you very much for joining us on the show. I appreciate your time. That's Simon Greaves. Thank you to my studio guests, Richard Tice, superb, Chris Hope, Mark White, and you guys, please, next time, get a room. Now, still to come, we'll have plenty more of reaction to Defence Secretary John Healey's sensational resignation from Sir Keir Starmer's now defenceless government. And also next, a Pakistani asylum seeker has been jailed for 10 years for raping an 18-year-old woman in Nottinghamshire. Let's deport him today.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way.
You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
It's a surprise!
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back. Time's 5:23 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, second night of unrest erupted last night on the streets of Belfast after a Sudanese asylum seeker was charged with attempted murder following a knife attack on Monday evening. Police were forced to use water cannons against demonstrators in the Northern Ireland capital after mass protesters threw bricks and bottles at police near a migrant hotel. Now, this comes as it's been revealed the suspect travelled to Northern Ireland from Dublin before having his asylum claim fast-tracked under a controversial Home Office scheme. Let's get now to our reporter, the legendary Doogie Beattie, who joins us from Belfast. Doogie, night 3 is coming upon us. What's the mood there on the ground in Belfast?
Well, that's why I'm here, Martin. I'm actually here of where night 1's worst violent was in East Belfast. And if you remember back then, at this time of night, these roads were totally empty. Shops were shut, businesses closed, and you can see now it is very much alive. This is what rush hour in Belfast looks like, which all bodes very, very well for this part of the city tonight. Although last night, of course, the trouble wasn't. There was sporadic violence in Belfast last night, but the real trouble was in Glengormley in Newton Abbey Borough Council's area. That was, as you said, looking at bunch of protesters going to a migrant hotel there. Of course, we don't have many migrant hotels in Northern Ireland. That's the very reason for these protests. Most of these immigrants are being housed in social housing in socially deprived areas that have been bought up, or their leases bought up by the Mears Group for the last 5 or 6 years. And of course that means that locals in those areas can't actually get houses in amongst their own family when really they're not earning that much money because they're socially deprived, so they really need family support. That's where it backfires, and that is what is coming to England very shortly, of course, when they empty those hotels. As well as that, we have tomorrow, the Republic of Ireland is now going to take more immigrants because their quota will go up, because it will be controlled not by TDs in Dublin, but of course by Europe. They are now having to take their fair share, which causes real concern here for the people of Northern Ireland, because as you've talked about all day, that means that border is open. I talked about it 3 years ago on air and pointed this out when the Windsor Framework document was being done. Now, people are talking about militarising the border, doing all sorts. That's simply not true, but they can have checks on the border. The Republic of Ireland did it during the time of the Rwanda plan. There is nothing stopping that happening, or just not giving benefits to the people that are arriving here. It's all very well nights of violence. People are being arrested. 16 arrests over the last 2 nights. 20 plastic bullets fired. I don't think you have those in England. They're quite a risky thing to be walking into. Water cannon, and now tonight we have dog teams and 200 extra policemen from right around Britain. The bill last year for this week-long of riots during Ballymena, again over immigrants, was £5 million. It's had to come out of the budget. We've had 2 nights of this so far, and already constables being brought in from right across Britain, which is going to be about another £1 million. So you could say just in the security forces alone, there's about £3 million spent already, plus the money they've lost in the businesses, plus the buses that have been burned, and then, of course, the legal aid for those that are going to appear in court. So does migration really work when you see the bill that is coming down the line? And tonight we will be watching outside Belfast to see if other towns start to have those protests.
And Dougie Beattie, I spoke with Kate Hoey earlier on in the show, and she was telling me the Asylum Hotel last night, where the protesters marched towards when the water cannon were deployed. There have been peaceful protests there for weeks and weeks and weeks, but they're ignored. It had no impact. And so we continue to have this conversation, you and I. We've had it for years, Dougie. The locals want to engage with the political class. They've got no interest in talking to them. And here we are with civil unrest once again.
That's exactly it. And you heard me challenging the First Minister, Michelle O'Neill, on her party's policy on immigration, because, of course, they are also in the Dáil in the Republic of Ireland. And I was told it was fake news. Fake news that Catholics were out protesting with Protestant protesters last night. We interviewed some of them up at that particular protest. And they have all been protesting about this, and the political classes do not want to know. They're not listening to the people so far in Northern Ireland, but that appears to be the way also in the Republic of Ireland. This is getting very, very strained here. There's about 7 million people in the south, 1.8 million people in the north. It hasn't got the infrastructure to deal with this, and if more come in through the Republic of Ireland, they will come across a borderless border, enter the UK into Northern Ireland, and then can travel onwards back into Britain itself. It is really, really concerning to the people of Northern Ireland at this moment in time.
Dougie Beattie, thank you very much indeed. The First Minister there saying she has no truck with your fake news. I tell you what, you've been a news Goliath. Thank you very much for everything you've been doing there in Belfast, Dougie Beattie, the best of the business. Thank you very much for joining us once again on GB News. Now back to the studio. We're going to talk about John Healey sensationally resigning as the Defence Secretary earlier on today. I'm joined by my next guest, and that's Matthew Herrier, the SAS officer veteran. Matthew, before we get to John Healey, I want to talk to you, if I may, about Belfast. You've served in Belfast during the Troubles. You know those streets of those areas. How depressing is it for you to see this conflict once again when people just want to be listened to?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time over there imposing peace, working with the communities. It's a very fragile peace that is in Northern Ireland, and to see this erupt in chaos again because, you know, because of an atrocity that could have been avoided is heartbreaking, really. And the people, you know, they've worked so hard over the past 20 or 30 years, getting the communities working together, and all of a sudden they're thrown into chaos again.
Depressing to see. Let's talk now, if we may, about the bombshell news today. The Defence Secretary, John Healey, simply walking away. Resignation letter there, making it abundantly clear he believes, as Defence Secretary, as Minister, that the Prime Minister can't keep this country safe. Matthew, you and I have spoken many, many times over the years about your own despondency with the state of defence, the state of the nation. What's your initial reaction to this news today?
It's a huge bombshell, but it was probably to be expected. I think John Healey, a very intelligent guy, I think he's got his eyes on possibly the leadership race as well. But I think he's been let down. I think him and the Armed Forces Minister have been let down by the PM. Whether they've been misled at some point, I'm not quite sure. But for John Healey to resign in such a bombshell like this, it raises some really important questions. You know, why are we not spending on defence? This is our main aim, our main effort at the moment. You know, what's going on around the world? We're under fire from all sorts of sides, and we must keep our citizens, we must keep our bases, and we must keep this infrastructure safe, and we're not going to be able to do it.
Matt, as a veteran yourself, you know, a well-decorated veteran, how does it make you feel to learn that we spend less money on defence, 62 billion, than we do on net zero, 77 billion, on welfare. When you remove pensions, we spend like 187 million pounds on benefits. That's 3 times the defence budget. We've simply lost our sense of priorities.
It is shocking. And, rather than sit here and criticise, what we must do, we must come up with solutions. And there is a simple solution. We must cut the welfare bill. We must put that money into defence. We must keep our citizens safe.
Do you think that would ever happen under this government? Because already the Treasury this afternoon is kicking off. They're saying, well, John Healey wants to make cuts to schools and hospitals. It seems they can't allow any cuts to be made. And we keep talking, Mark White and I, about the fact that our entire armed forces now totals less men and women than the amount of men who've come here illegally on dinghies since 2018.
That's right. And I heard it say earlier that we can't fill Wembley Stadium. It's shocking. What's going on? We've got Iran, we've got all of the other countries. We are under threat here. We need to focus that. That needs to be our main effort. Like I said before, we need to pump money into it. We need to get money. Where are we going to get it? We've got to look at everything we're doing. Hospitals are a priority, but defence, of course. Let's cut this welfare budget. Let's pile it into defence. Otherwise, we're not going to have a country to look after. We're not going to have a country to be proud of. It's going to fall apart at the seams.
Matthew Harrier, thank you for joining us today in the studio. Appreciate that. And as ever, thank you for your service. Now, moving on, following the resignation of government, Saul said this country is safer because of the decisions Keir Starmer has made, and we will continue to act in our national interest. It is this Labour government and this Labour Prime Minister that is delivering the largest sustained boost to defence spending since the Cold War. Now, still to come. A Pakistani asylum seeker has been jailed for 10 years for raping an 18-year-old woman in Nottinghamshire last year. We'll have live reaction to this case. And I tell you what, he needs to be deported today. But for now, if you're travelling home from work or from school, stay safe and stick with us. Here's your traffic and your travel update.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. An incident has closed both directions on the A458 between Welshpool and Middletown. On the M1 southbound in Rotherham, one of 4 lanes is closed due to a vehicle fire, causing about 10 minutes delay. On the M25 anti-clockwise in Surrey, 2 lanes are shut between junction 6 and 5 due to a broken down vehicle. Avoid the A34 southbound in Oxfordshire, where an accident has caused 1.5 hours delay. And on the trains, major disruptions continue between Nuneaton and Rugby on Avanti West Coast, with more delays between Carlisle and Motherwell on Avanti West Coast. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Overall tomorrow, a lot drier and a bit warmer than today. It may start fairly dull, but it should get a bit brighter, and it won't be completely dry. Still a few showers around, but not the persistent rain that many of us had through this morning from this set of weather fronts, all trying to move out into the North Sea, but leaving behind a lot of cloud, rain and drizzle, particularly over hills and around the coasts in the west. Some of that rain just pushing its way up towards Orkney, but most of it clearing from eastern parts of England and Scotland. So becoming much drier here through the night with some clearer skies. It will be quite a warm night, particularly in the south. Temperatures holding up in the mid-teens and still quite breezy here as well. On to Friday, a bit of a mishmash, certainly to start with. A lot of clouds, still some rain and drizzle across Wales, northwest England, Northern Ireland. It's probably a largely dry but fairly drab start across southern counties. Still quite breezy here. Northeast England into eastern Scotland. I think the favoured spots for starting off, at least with some sunshine. A few showers continuing to come into northwestern parts of Scotland. As we go through the day, we should see skies brightening in many locations. Quite a wet morning for northwest England, perhaps, and there will still be rain and drizzle over the hills of Wales, certainly through the morning. Showers will keep going into western Scotland, blown along by a fairly brisk wind, but elsewhere, generally any rain petering out, the skies brightening, the cloud breaking up, and we'll see some decent spells of sunshine, I suspect, by the afternoon, which will lift the temperatures. A warmer day tomorrow, certainly over eastern England, with some sunshine. Temperatures likely to climb back into the 20s. More heavy showers to come through Friday evening across the northwest, but otherwise Pretty pleasant Friday evening for many. Still a bit breezy for sure. The weekend starts fine. Probably quite cloudy, but some sunshine developing, and it is going to get a bit warmer through the weekend too.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
Day in, day out. Forget stuffy late night TV shows. We're giving you a front row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
Time is 5:38 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, Pakistani asylum seeker Shiraz Malik has been sentenced today to 10 years in jail with 4 years on extended licence for the rape of an 18-year-old woman in Sutton and Ashfield. That's where my mother lives, in Nottinghamshire, in June last year. Well, let's now speak with GB News' national reporter Jack Carson, who joins us from outside Birmingham Crown Court. Jack Carson, thank you for being there for us today. An astonishing case, and one that once again asks so many questions. This rapist, Malik, had already spent time in multiple countries in Europe and yet was allowed here and went on to rape a woman.
Yeah, Malik had travelled through and lived through Italy, Germany, France before coming to the UK and claiming asylum, Martin. He'd been in this country for less than 12 months when he committed the offence of raping this 18-year-old girl on Sutton Lawn in Sutton Ashfield, as you said, in June last year. The girl had been drinking with another friend of hers throughout the day. They'd ended up in the park and met with this group of men who they'd seen as playing cricket. The friend of the girl left only for a short period of time and asked the group to look after her. She told them that she needed to go to the toilet, and one of Malik's associates took her to a secluded area. It's there Malik's associate took advantage of her and raped her before bringing her back to the group. As the prosecution said in the trial, the defendant, then Malik, then decided he wished to have sex with her and took his turn to take her to a secluded spot where he physically struck her while raping her. The physical attacks were to the face and the head of the victim when she voiced her no consent for the sexual actions that Malik was putting her through. She was slapped in the head, slapped to the face, to the point where the victim told the trial that she tasted blood in her mouth. His Honour, Judge Simon Ash, KC, sentencing Malik today to 10 years imprisonment, custodial time, and extended licence of 4 years. Told the sentencing hearing today that some of the things you said amounted to degradation and humiliation behaviour, saying that there is no evidence of remorse of you or the fact that you have no insight into the serious harm that you have caused to the victim, saying that you appear to only feel hostility and anger towards her. Now, before every sentencing, a pre-sentencing report is put together by the probation service. We heard in the sentencing hearing today that during that meeting with a probation officer, he was shouting and swearing, saying that actually he was showing indications of distorted thinking. That's how it was put, that the probation officer had judged Malik of having indications of distortive thinking around consent, personal entitlement and objectification of women. As I said, he'd only been in the UK for less than 12 months before he raped this 18-year-old girl. In her personal impact statement, her victim impact statement today, the girl said, "I find myself struggling to cope. I keep having nightmares about the incident and the medical examination after it." Now, after the offences, in the days after, Malik left Nottinghamshire. He bought a ticket under a different name on a coach, and he was eventually arrested in in Newcastle. When asked why he travelled on that ticket under a different name, he told the jury during the trial that a friend had bought it for him, adding into his evidence that the Home Office was only giving him £50 every week. Nottinghamshire police say their thoughts are with the victims, whose courage, resilience and bravery have been evident throughout the investigation and the criminal justice process.
Jack Carson, thank you for getting there to Birmingham and Crown Court to give us that report. A lot of people listening to that will find it inconceivable that Shiraz Malik is not deported immediately back to Pakistan. Thank you, Jack Carson. Now, moving on to my next story now, let's speak with the research fellow of the Henry Jackson Society, Emma Schubert. Emma, welcome to the show. Not only is this a grotesque case of Shiraz Malik, but we heard also earlier this afternoon that the Bell Hotel in Epping is being closed. The government will trumpet that as a huge victory, but we all know what's going to happen next. They'll simply be moved into HMOs around the country. And these two cases, don't they, they converge with the feeling, the omnipresent feeling, Emma Schubert, that British women are increasingly unsafe.
Right. Now, this case highlights a severe problem with the British immigration system. And I want to point a few data points out. So since 2023, Pakistan has actually been one of the top nationalities claiming asylum in the UK. It's often been the single largest group per year to do so. For example, in 2024, over 10,000 Pakistanis claimed asylum, and that was the highest nationality that year, and it was also up 79% from the year prior. Now, the asylum grant rate in 2024 was around 51%, which means refugee status was granted in roughly half of decided cases. And then again, in year ending March 2025 and 2026, Pakistanis are again the most common nationality claiming asylum in the UK. But I think the more interesting fact here is that is how Pakistanis typically arrive in the UK. So most do not arrive via small boats. They actually usually arrive totally legally via student visas and work visas and other temporary visas. And this has been a growing pattern among Bangladeshis and Pakistanis, specifically in recent years into the UK. Now, of course, I'm not suggesting that every single asylum claim from Pakistan or Bangladesh is illegitimate, but the rate and manner of these asylum claims does seem to strongly suggest that the generosity of the UK asylum system is being severely exploited.
Okay, Emma Schubert, thank you for your time. Research fellow at the Henry Jackson Society. Thank you, Emma Schubert. Mark White, I want to get your reaction to this. A lot of people will be listening to this case of Shiraz Malik and saying, how can this monster spend a single minute longer in Britain? Get him back to Pakistan.
Well, you know, the Pakistani government have been notoriously tricky to deal with in terms of either getting failed asylum seekers to return or indeed the foreign national offenders. It's why the British government has threatened them with visa restrictions. But really, none of that has happened thus far, and they are still notoriously difficult to deal with. And you're absolutely right that, of course, people are very concerned that an individual like this, you know, should be in this country in the first place, claiming asylum from what? What war-torn part of Pakistan is he from that requires that asylum application to be granted, is what many people will be asking. But in addition to that, they will be saying, this is yet another example of an asylum seeker who's gone on to commit a horrible offence in this country. They are almost a daily routine. They're certainly, you know, happening multiple times in a single week. And we get people like Hilary Benn coming out today and saying that people who protest about this, people who have genuine concerns about this, are far right, are racist thugs out in Belfast. Yes, some are, but most people are genuinely concerned at what they see as growing levels of criminality linked to people who are in this country, many of them illegally.
Thank you very much, Mark White. A lot of people will be totally agreeing with that. Now, coming up next, change of tone, because, of course, the countdown for the World Cup is well and truly underway. Can England once again finally bring it home? I doubt it. But Scotland definitely don't win, and Mark White can certainly attest to that. But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast of the top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello there. High pressures building in for much of Europe to bring plenty of sunshine. It's especially warm through the Canary Islands through the rest of this week. Temperatures climbing towards the high 20s across Tenerife. Also quite warm in Portugal as well as Italy. Temperatures climb into the low 30s here. There's a risk of thunderstorms across Greece, particularly in the afternoons, and that risk does continue into the weekend. But otherwise, it looks pretty warm and pretty sunny if you're heading away. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
You're a stripper for nearly 20 years now. Yeah. And what you do now has changed. How has it changed and why?
I think beforehand they would book you individually. There would be a lot of stripograms, and that would be bookings for like birthdays, hen parties, and ultimately you would probably be around their house or something like that, or in a small bar. What it's kind of moved into now is more shows. Dream Boys, it's really popular. It's up and down the country, and what you'll find is they'll get 20, 30 girls together and they'll go out and they'll go to the show because they've got the drag queen, they've got the dancers, they've got the stripper, they've got the whole night's entertainment.
Is that because they feel uncomfortable with a stripper, or is it a woke thing? Is it they're concerned about objectifying you because they don't objectify themselves, so why should you be objectified?
I think it could be possibly a bit about... some of them might think if we get them around the house, there might be a person that's uncomfortable with it. Whereas if they book the show, you're free to go to the show or not.
GB News, the People's Channel. GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Princess Anne and the way that she has brought up her family is really interesting, isn't it? Because, you know, you've got daughter and son who've not taken on royal titles, who've just got on with their lives.
I think now, in retrospect, we can say it was an inspired decision of the Princess Royal, Princess Anne, not to have her husband receive a Grand Peerage title, which meant, of course, that her children would just be plain Mr. and Mrs. Zara is Mrs. Tyndall, he is Mr. Phillips, and that's allowed them actually to have a much more normal life, not being in the necessary glare that attaches when you have the HRH prefix to your name and become a duke or a duchess or whatever. And yes, they have had great lives in the private sector.
GB News, the People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Dorothea served in preparation for D-Day. And Dorothea, how does it feel being here today, joining other veterans?
We suddenly felt that it had been worthwhile giving up our youth, our years as teenagers. No such things existed. You were a child until you were 14 or 16, depending on the year. And after that, OK, you're fit to be killed for the country. And it was naturally assumed that everybody would willingly do their bit for England. And they would have.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 6. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, football fans across the world, of course, been waiting patiently. And now the FIFA World Cup starts today. Underway today, you can see there, Mexico City. That's the stadium where we were robbed by Maradona at the hand of God, because for the first time, 48 nations are competing with matches spread across the States, Canada and Mexico. More teams, more games, and hopefully more drama as the race to be crowned world champions begins this evening. Let's now speak with the senior global reporter at Mail Online, Nick Pisa. Nick, you're out there in the States. It's all about to kick off.
Yeah, I'm here at the Kansas City Stadium, which you might be able to see just behind me. The last-minute preparations are underway. And this is the city where the England team will be basing themselves. They're not actually due to arrive here until Saturday. They'll be staying in a hotel called the Meadowbank, and they'll be using the Swope soccer facilities on the outskirts of the city. But as you can see here, yeah, the preparations still going on. There are fences going up and last-minute painting jobs and that sort of stuff going on around the stadium. One thing that did actually surprise me, Martin, is it's actually quite low key. I was watching the sports channels here in the States overnight, and all they seem to be fussing about is the basketball match last night between the New York Knicks and the San Antonio Spurs, which apparently they won by a single point to the Knicks. So, I mean, I'm not a basketball aficionado, but that's all everyone seems to be talking to me. And of course, when I mention football, I have to say soccer here to all our American friends.
And it makes you wonder, Nick, why they got the tournament. This is Mexico's third tournament. Like, we've only had it once. It's a fix.
Yeah, that did cross my mind, Martin, actually, because, you know, they're not really a soccer nation here, despite the fact that they did actually hold it here in 1994. And I think that the heat and the humidity is just going to be really difficult. We know that they're going to have 2 drinks breaks. They're going to divide the game into quarters, which is a bit like an American football match, really, isn't it? They're going to have drinks breaks in each half of 3 minutes so that the players can take on some fluids as well. But yeah, the prices have gone up as well. There's all the controversy surrounding that, ticketing and the cost of getting out here as well. Prices have certainly shot up around here. I've just been down to the Kansas City Fans Park as well, or Fan Zone as well, and the people there are sort of grumbling as well, saying that there was a concert here for Chapel Rowan last summer, and the prices were half the price than they are now. So certainly, FIFA seem to make a lot of money out of this.
All right, Nick, have a good time there, mate, in Kansas. Appreciate your time. Nick Peaser there from Mail Online. Mark White, before we get to Michelle Dewberry, very quickly, you're Scottish. You expect to lose?
Yeah, well, I'll say, first of all, I've got Mexico in the sweepstake, so I shall be cheering them on tonight. But yeah, we've got Haiti is our first match on Sunday, 2 in the morning. I'll be up in Glasgow for a wedding there, so I'll still be up at that time. I'll be watching it with my brother, cheering them on.
That will get messy. Thank you very much indeed. Coming up next, of course, Jubes & Co. She's always going to lift your trophies. Here's Jubes & Co. Jubes, what's on your menu, darling?
Oh, being a trophy winner, a chance would be a fine thing, wouldn't it, Martin? Anyway, look, there's so much that we need to discuss. Why have we got our priorities in this country so wrong? Why do we deprioritise things like literally actual defence over anything else? Also, this notion, yet again, that the government wants to use unrest to clamp down on us tighter, harder, faster. Go away. That's what I say. We've got so much to debate tonight. I'll see you in a sec to do just that.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good afternoon. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Overall tomorrow, a lot drier and a bit warmer than today. It may start fairly dull, but it should get a bit brighter, and it won't be completely dry. Still a few showers around, but not the persistent rain that many of us had through this morning from this set of weather fronts, all trying to move out into the North Sea, but leaving behind a lot of cloud, rain and drizzle, particularly over the hills and around the coasts in the west. Some of that rain just pushing its way up towards Orkney, but most of it clearing from eastern parts of England and Scotland. So becoming much drier here through the night with some clearer skies. It will be quite a warm night, particularly in the south. Temperatures holding up in the mid-teens and still quite breezy here as well. On to Friday, bit of a mission.